At the end of the Ice Age, I accumulated tens of billions of supplies. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 876, Controlling All Spirits, +1. He came riding on all the spirits of the ocean, standing proudly on the head of a giant whale like a sea god, with all the spirits of the ocean under his feet surrendering to him. This shocking scene caused deafening cheers to ring out from the Navy headquarters, just to welcome the arrival of crocodiles. The female soldiers even took out their underwear excitedly, regardless of the severe cold, and trembled in the wind. The male soldiers whistled constantly. Crocodiles liked this scene very much. He waved his arms forward and smiled. When the tide approached the port, he jumped off the head of the giant whale, and then a wave formed by seawater and broken ice naturally formed under his feet, carrying him forward gracefully. Those terrifying sea creatures stayed in place obediently and did not move forward. Crocodiles crossed the battleships one after another and came to the coast gracefully and calmly. The female soldiers immediately threw the clothes in their hands towards him, with colorful butterflies flying in the air. Crocodiles reached out and grabbed a sexy 3-point bra with a wicked smile on his lips. Wow, that's an amazing size. The laughter and cheers on the shore became even louder. The female soldier blew a kiss and shouted loudly, "Hey, crocodiles, do you want to come to my place to have a rest tonight?" Crocodiles laughed and said, "I will consider it." At this time, Navy Captain Balcato had just arrived at the shore with a team of Navy. Seeing this farce-like scene, he took a few deep breaths to suppress his inner restlessness. As a senior admiral of the Navy, he hated this kind of grandstanding behavior. However, as the strongest combat force in the ocean fleet, courteous has always been Commander Douglas's pet peeve. Even though Balcato, as his superior officer, could not restrain courteous behavior. A low-level sergeant is a low-level non-commissioned officer. Even if he gains power, he cannot change his vulgar nature. Balcato whispered. Crocodiles was just an ordinary corporal before. If it hadn't been for the advent of the apocalypse that made him stand out from the Navy's experiments, he would not have become the Navy's darling at all. Balcato thought he was just a lucky guy, but just such a complaint from him attracted the attention of crocodiles from afar. "Hey, Balcato. Don't bite my ears behind my back. You are also a naval colonel after all. Doing this will only make you look cowardly." Crocodiles pointed at Balcato and said unceremoniously while walking towards him. Balcato didn't expect that crocodiles could hear his whispers from such a distance. However, he raised his head and said, "Lieutenant Colonel Crocodiles, in the military, you should call people with higher positions than you, sir." Hearing this, Crocodiles suddenly laughed, showing his white teeth. He walked up to Balcato step by step. Several officers next to Balcato looked at them with some worry, because Courtiers is a famous lunatic among the Navy. Crocodiles walked up to Balcato and looked down at the naval captain, who was 5 centimeters shorter than him in a joking manner. The smile on Crocodile's face was bright, but his eyes were cold. In the entire naval base, there is only one person worthy of my admiration, General Douglas. Who do you think you are? Balcato was furious. What qualifications do you have to say such a thing? You are just a brat who got lucky and got powerful power by luck. And my medals were obtained through military exploits again and again. Crocodile smiled and spread his hands. "Oh, my Colonel Balcato. You are right, but that is the past." He suddenly reached out and held Balcato's shoulders, staring at him coldly. "But now, you are just a muggle, and I'm the big boss." From the ice blue eyes of crocodiles, an extremely frightening emotion was released. The strong sense of oppression made Balcato can only widen his eyes and stare at courtiers. Fortunately, 2 officers nearby came to the rescue. "Lieutenant Colonel Crocodiles, General Douglas wants you to see him immediately. He has something very important to tell you." Hearing Douglas's name, courtiers put down the Balcato in his hand. The naval captain collapsed to the ground, as if he had collapsed. Crocodiles didn't even look at him. "Since it's the general's call, I'll go over there." After he finished speaking, he crossed Balcato's body and strode towards the naval base with high strides. If it weren't for the fact that he was at the Ocean Fleet headquarters, he might have actually killed Bo-Kato and then casually blamed it on a surrounding country. But here, he can't kill a colonel at will. After Cardyles left, Bo-Kato stared at his back with a look of resentment and then angrily threw off the hat on his head. The colleague next to him advised, "Forget it, Bo-Kato. We need him now." Bo-Kato took a deep breath and said in a curse-like tone, "The military's experimental subject. Let's let him be arrogant for a while. His fate will not be much better in the future." The colleague shrugged. "At least now, we can't afford to offend him." Chapter 877 Douglas, +1. Cardyles came to Douglas's office and met the naval commander who liked to smoke old-fashioned pipes. As the commander of Columbia's naval ace, Douglas's prestige in the Navy was extremely high. Even Cardyles, who is an Epsilon-level alien, is willing to obey the orders of this one. All of this also stems from the screening of the God-making plan after the end of Columbia. All soldiers participating in the experiment must guarantee their loyalty to Columbia and must not be crazy careerists. For example, Cardyles. His favorite things are women, money, and slot machines. Therefore, even if he possesses powerful power, he may be arrogant and domineering at best, but he will never have the idea of subverting the top brass of the Navy. Because that would be very troublesome for him, but it would not be as beneficial as it is now. Cardyles met Douglas. The first thing Douglas did was glance at the clock on the wall and said, "You're 2 hours late." Cardyles smiled and sat across from Douglas. "You know, I'm always very busy. If I hadn't been keeping an eye on the East China Sea, Huaxu Kingdom's fleet would have come out long ago. They have always wanted to occupy a place in the ocean area." Douglas took a drag on his pipe and blew out white smoke. "There are more important tasks for you to do right now than that." He pushed a document on the table in front of Cardyles. "Yesterday afternoon, one of our cruisers was destroyed, and all crew members were killed. And the other party is just an icebreaker. So we conclude that there are top strangers from Huaxu Kingdom on it." Cardyles flipped through the information on it. The Copernicus. It carried 24 heavy missiles and hundreds of high-speed torpedoes. It was sunk by others. As he spoke, he touched his chin. "But if the other party is a stranger, this seems reasonable. After all, you know that this is not a difficult problem for me," Cardyles said with a smile. Douglas had long been accustomed to Cartier's character. "The problem now is that losing a warship and dozens of soldiers is a huge loss for us." He knocked on the table and said seriously, "We must respond. We must catch the murderer. If we don't do this, others will think that we have lost our ability to dominate the ocean area." Seeing Douglas's serious expression, Cardyles also suppressed his frivolous smile. "Is the opponent strong?" "There is no critical information yet. But according to our intelligence, the ship came from the Jiangnan region of Huaxu Kingdom, and there are no Epsilon-level strangers in the Jiangnan region." Cardyles smiled easily. "If that's the case, there's no need for me to take action, right?" Douglas said. "But, I don't want a dead person. I want a living one. There is very important information on him. If you want to capture him alive, you must take action." Cardyles' face was filled with a relaxed expression. "Although it's a bit troublesome to catch people, the opponent doesn't even reach the Epsilon level. Moreover, the main battlefield is at sea. For him, this task may waste some time, but there is no risk at all." So he spread his hands and said, "Since you made the request in person, I will definitely agree." General Douglas nodded. "The other party is very cunning. He has probably stopped sending information to the outside world. The Navy's reconnaissance equipment cannot find him. You have to use your own abilities to find him. I knew it was a troublesome job." "Okay. Who told me to be a member of the Navy? Anyway, just wait for my good news." After hearing this, Cardyles stood up and walked out. "By the way, General, I have a suggestion for you." He turned back, pointed at Douglas and said, "Bortoka is a fool. You'd better transfer him out of the headquarters as soon as possible. I think it would be good to let him go to the fisheries department to be responsible for catching fish." After saying that, he left Douglas's office with a smile. Douglas took 2 puffs of his pipe, looked at his arrogant look, smiled and shook his head. Although Cartius has an arrogant character, it must be said that he is still a very useful soldier. At least the tasks he was asked to do could be completed very well. Whatever Cardiles likes, Douglas can give it to him. Money, power, women, vanity that is admired by thousands of people. As long as he is willing to obey Douglas's management, all this is easy to say. Cardiles walked out of Douglas's office. He put his hands on his hips, exhaled a breath, and complained, "What a trouble. I'm the king of the ocean, and you are asking me to fuck the investigator. Don't let me catch that damn boy, otherwise I will stuff you into the octopus. Stay in the slime all day." Just as he was complaining, a beautiful woman with blonde hair wearing a military uniform walked over gracefully on high heels and holding a stack of documents. P.S. These 2 chapters only had 1500 words. I didn't know why the word count was short at first, so I added an extra chapter. Douyin, the Sea of Memories. Live broadcasts are often held. If you are interested, please follow and chat. Chapter 878 Rose Squad. Cardile's eyes lit up. The girl in front of him was beautiful, and she was his type. But in fact, his tastes are very complex, especially when he has power. It can even be described as accepting everyone. He walked over and blocked the blonde's path. "Hello, beautiful lady, what is your name?" When the blonde beauty saw Cartius, the legend about him suddenly came to mind, and her heart beat rapidly, nervous and excited. "My name is Jelena, sir." "Juliana, a beautiful name, as beautiful as your person." Cardile smiled and took her hand, and put his other hand around her shoulder. "I'm going on a mission soon, so before I leave, could you please comfort my tired body?" "Sir, but I still want to." No. Don't talk. This is your obligation, so you can't refuse." Jelena had no choice but to swallow the matter of sending important documents to Douglas. Because Douglas once told everyone around him verbally, if Cartius falls in love with any woman, she must satisfy him unconditionally, even if she's the general's wife. Of course, Douglas's wife is not at risk in this regard, because she is already an old woman in her 50s. Cardiles has not yet had such perverted interests. Because Zhang Yi sank the Copernicus, and because the news about the source of God was leaked, the consequences were undoubtedly huge. ZHU Zheng and Douglas are both taking active actions, and must get the information about the source of God. Although the Jiangnan region is far from comparable to the Columbian Ocean Fleet in the naval field, it also has its own methods. Immediately, he arranged for Zhang Yi to escape in the southwest direction. Because there is an investigation team that he sent out to perform tasks before. In the Southwest Sea, where an island is located, raging black smoke spreads into the sky. The freezing ice sea was temporarily warmed by the burning of the flames. Hundreds of ships, large and small, were almost destroyed at this time. Babu, captain of the 6th Division of the Cheyenne Lang Pirates, was in an extremely embarrassed state at this time. His face was severely stepped on by a high-heeled shoe, and there were horrific wounds all over his body. The deck beneath him was soaked with blood. "Babu, let me ask you one last time. Where is the lair of the Heavenly Dragon King?" The cold voice came from a cold woman. She was wearing a blue and white combat uniform and a white military cap, with chestnut-colored natural curls reaching her back. She had a resolute face, and a pair of ice blue eyes that were particularly eye-catching. Especially the pair of eyebrows as sharp as swords give people a chilling feeling. She is the captain of Team Rose, Taiyin Star Lord, and Fairy Guanghan, Linghu Fixu. Babu was covered in wounds. He had been tortured to the point of being out of shape, and his body was horribly bloated. But facing Linghu Fixu's torture, he still sneered. "I won't tell you, bitch. You will never find Cheyenne Long Island." Linghu Fixu looked at him coldly, then used her foot directly to pierce his eyeball. Babu let out a scream like a killing pig. At this time, a member of Team Rose came over and said to Linghu Fixu, "Captain, urgent call from headquarters." Hearing this, Linghu Fixu said to Babu, "That's it for today. I've had enough fun." She turned around and left calmly. In the air, huge colorful bubbles suddenly appeared one after another, as bright and charming as a dream. Those blisters gathered around Babu's body and even penetrated into his body from his 7 orifices. Woo! Babu soon fell into suffocation and had no strength to even struggle. but a moment later, his body exploded violently, turning into pieces of flesh all over the sky. Ling Hufixu returned to the ship and took the call from ZHU Zheng. "Commander, I'm Ling Hufixu." Ling Hufixu sat on a chair with her legs crossed. When talking to ZHU Zheng, she was as indifferent as ever. However, ZHU Zheng seemed to be used to it and did not pursue her impoliteness. He just asked, "How has the mission in the South China Sea been completed?" Ling Hufixu said, "The people of the Xianlang pirates are very cunning, and their lairs are always changing. It is very difficult to pinpoint their location. I just wiped out their 6th division, but according to the speed at which this group of pirates are expanding in the South China Sea, this may not help. Soon they will use the refugees from all sides to expand their power." ZHU Zheng said, "Put this task aside for now. There is another important thing that you need to complete." "Oh." Ling Hufixu's eyes showed a strange luster. "Change tasks midway? This is the first time this has happened." ZHU Zheng would not have made this choice if he had not encountered a particularly important emergency, because any task requires a long time of preparation before action. ZHU Zheng said seriously, "Chaos went to sea to perform a mission, and now there is friction with the Colombian Navy. I asked him to flee in the direction where you are. Go and pick him up immediately. Be sure to bring him back safely." When Ling Hufixu heard the word chaos, she showed a curious expression for the first time. "Chaos? Is he the one who defeated Gao Changkang? The mission that allows that person to go out is very important." Ling Hufixu didn't ask any more questions. "I understand. I will pick him up." ZHU Zheng continued, "In order to avoid being discovered by the Colombian Navy, they cannot communicate with the outside world. You have to find your own way to find them on the vast sea. I have already transmitted the information about them to you." Ling Hufixu smiled. "Okay, I see." After ending the call, Ling Hufixu checked some information about Jinfeng and Zhang Yi. She smiled lightly and immediately gave orders to all the team members. "Kill all the pirates here, and then we turn around and head to the south." Gu Yufei, a female team member with long hair, came to Ling Hufixu. "Team leader." Ling Hufixu told her about finding someone. "Ask your friends to help find the Huaxu Kingdom's ship." After Gu Yufei received the order, she immediately came to the boat. She put her hands on her chest, lightly opened her lips, and made a beautiful and magical sound. Aria. This ability allows for dialogue with all living creatures. 10 minutes later, a group of dolphins passed through the layers of broken ice and responded to Gu Yufei with a sharp cry. Gu Yufei smiled softly, lowered her head to look at them, and asked them to find the boat. The dolphins responded happily to Gu Yufei, then dived into the water and swam in all directions. Chapter 879 Regional Cooperation. After ZHU Zheng finished contacting Team Rose, he felt a little relieved. However, he knew very well in his heart that the Rose Squadron alone could not compete with the Colombian Navy. There must be a powerful naval force that can hold back the Colombian Navy and buy Zhang Yi and the Rose team time to escape. Otherwise, even if Zhang Yi and the others fled to the ends of the earth, they would not be able to find a way back to the Jiangnan region on the sea. "We have to talk to Lioli." ZHU Zheng sighed. Not long ago, the Colombian Navy had contacted him. It's just an official document expressing the justice of their actions. Of course, they did not mention their attempt to seize the ship by force, but only mentioned Zhang Yi's sinking of the Copernicus. When major countries act, they still need a reason to act. This is the basic tacit understanding between them. As for ZHU Zheng's explanation, Douglas would not pay attention to it at all. Therefore, ZHU Zheng planned to contact the Donghae district and ask them to help him gain space for Zhang Yi. But to do that, you have to pay a sufficient price. ZHU Zheng turned on the computer, thought for a while, and sent a picture to Li Guangxiu. Then he sat at his desk, silently waiting for Li Guangxiu's response. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Li Guangxiu's message came over. ZHU Zheng answered the video call. At the other end of the video, Li Guangxiu's face was full of smiles, with a hint of eagerness at the same time. "Leo ZHU, have you found the source of God?" They all have information about the source of God, which was given to them by the Shengjing district. Although Shengjing district will not share the source of God, it will share information with them. After all, the 6 districts are one family and are interdependent on each other. So Zhu Zeng and Li Guangxiu have both seen pictures of the source of God. Because of this, Li Guangxiu became excited the first time he saw the picture. Zhu Zeng said with a smile, "Laoli, don't be anxious, listen to me slowly." He explained the cause and effect of the incident to Li Guangxiu, but hid a lot of key information. It just means going to sea to rescue a person who knows the information about the source of God. He kept all information about Li Zhang Yi confidential. After Li Guangxiu listened to Zhu Zeng's words, he couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. That boy under your command is so ruthless. He actually dared to directly sink a cruiser of Columbia in the ocean area. If this kind of behavior were carried out in the past, it would have been a major accident that could trigger a national war. Zhu Zeng snorted coldly, "What time is this? It's not a peaceful era. Besides, if they hadn't struck first, how could my people fight back?" Li Guangxiu raised his voice. "Oh, if it is for the source of God, this is also very reasonable. Not to mention sinking a cruiser. Even fighting them is worth it. Nowadays, many top international powers have learned about the existence of the source of God. I don't know when this mysterious thing appeared, but its power is extremely amazing, and it can promote a top delta level alien to become an epsilon. Everyone knows how strong the epsilon level aliens are. The higher the level, the greater the strategic significance of this alien. With the advent of the era of great mutation, there will be more and more aliens. There may even be a day in the future when ordinary soldiers will be replaced by aliens. By that time, the presence of thermal weapons will become weaker and weaker. If countries want to maintain their own power, they must make arrangements in advance. The power of weapons is limited. The aliens' power has yet to reach its upper limit." Li Guangxiu said to Zhu Zeng, "You want my people to help you, right?" Zhu Zeng smiled and said, "That's exactly what I have in mind." Li Guangxiu chuckled, and the old fox had already begun to think about the cost effectiveness of doing so. They are now confronting Columbia in the East China Sea, but no one dares to act rashly. Strictly speaking, the Navy of the East China Sea region and the Columbian Ocean Fleet are about equal in strength. But they have local advantages and can launch missiles from land to directly attack the Columbian fleet or even the headquarters. It's not impossible for us to help you, but the best we can do is hold them back without actually breaking out into a large-scale naval battle with them. In addition, you must share the information about the source of God with me when the time comes." Li Guangxiu made his request directly. Zhu Zeng and Li Guangxiu are also old friends, and they are both soldiers, so they will not be sloppy. The conditions proposed by Li Guangxiu were not excessive, and Zhu Zeng really needed their help, so he agreed. "Okay, when the time comes to obtain the source of God, we can join forces. Well, I will send people to the East China Sea immediately to put pressure on them." The two did not discuss how to distribute the source of God. It's not that they don't want to talk, but so far, except for some people in Shengjing, no other area has been exposed to this kind of thing. They don't even know what form the source of God is, and whether it can be divided. But one thing is clear to both of them. When there are foreign enemies, they must join forces to resolve external conflicts first. Old Li, you must try your best. After all, the person I sent out is very important to the Jiangnan region. If you can't stand the pressure, maybe I'll have to ask Shengjing for help." Zhu Zeng said seriously. No matter what Zhang Yi's attitude is, now, he is indeed the highest combat power in the Jiangnan region. No matter what, Zhu Zeng must protect Zhang Yi. Jiangnan region has experienced successive blows, and can no longer afford to lose another top combatant. Li Guangxiu really felt the pressure. If Shengjing interferes in this matter, I'm afraid they will all have nothing to do but drink soup. Because Shengjing's behavior has always been domineering, coupled with the terror of the owner of the Hell's Guillotine ability, once they take action, both Jiangnan and Donghae will become mere foils. Leo Zhu, what are you talking about? Our Donghae region is not that bad. Li Guangxiu said angrily, just show me. Why is the number 1 in the world playing Dingri? I only fight the elite. Zhu Zeng smiled and nodded. Okay, then I'll rely on you. I won't let your efforts go in vain. The military rations for this operation will be supplied by our Jiangnan region. Jiangnan is prosperous and occupies one of the two largest granaries in the Central Plains. Now, after the apocalypse, things are slowly coming back, and we are beginning to use technological capabilities to restore productivity. In terms of combat power, it may not be as good as Donghai and Shenjing, but in terms of supplies, it makes other regions jealous. Okay, then let's make a deal. After the two discussed, Li Guangxiu immediately ordered to monitor all movements of the Colombian Navy. Moreover, in order to show sufficient deterrence, he directly dispatched the foremost powerful naval formations in the East China Sea region and headed towards the Neon Rope Fly Island. Chapter 880 ZHUU. Because Zhang Yi sank the Copernicus, undercurrent surged throughout the East China Sea. On the Colombian Ocean Fleet side, in order to obtain information about the source of God, they did not hesitate to dispatch the highest combat power, crocodiles. The Huaxu Kingdom's Jiangnan region and Donghai region also sent sufficient manpower. Their goals are exactly the same, which is Zhang Yi, who has blocked all news and walked in the dark on the vast sea. Like the butterfly effect, the actions of the two major powers also set off huge ripples in the surrounding area, involving many small countries. As for the confrontation between the two navies, no one outside knows what the reason is. The only information obtained on the surface was due to the sinking of a Colombian warship. But everyone knows that at such an emergency moment, it is impossible for the two superpowers to start the war lightly. If there is, then it must be because of some huge interests or conflicts. However, neither Jiangnan nor Donghai nor the Colombian Ocean Fleet could leak any information about this. Even to the highest levels of Shenjing region or Colombia, they all chose to hide it tacitly. After all, they all want to keep good things like the source of God themselves, rather than share them with others. Although the 6 major regions of Huaxu Kingdom are connected by the same spirit, they each have the power of local governance. The same is true in Colombia, where the states are united and hostile to each other, and likewise divided into groups. Externally they can unite. But when there is no external pressure, they will also compete with each other for the right to speak. In short, the situation in the East China Sea quickly turned into a mess. Li Guangxiu, the supreme commander of the East China Sea region, directly ordered his 4 most powerful formations to go to the East China Sea to scare Douglas. These 4 formations are commanded by the 4 top strangers in the East China Sea region. Due to official confidentiality, their personal information is not available to the outside world. I only know that in the official announcement, they were named after the 4 ancient spirits of Huaxu Kingdom. They are Qinglong, Beihu, Suzaku and Zhuanwu. It is said that it was not easy for the 4 captains of the East China Sea region to obtain these 4 titles. Because these 4 titles are so popular, many top aliens in the region hope to use them as titles. However, the contenders eventually gave up the competition. There is only one reason: aware of the gap in strength. The 4 spirits fleet dispatched, approaching the headquarters of the Colombian Ocean Fleet, looking across the sea at several large harbors on Fly Island. This forced Douglas to mobilize a large number of ships to confront him. And this also relieved Zhang Yi from great pressure. Blizzard City. ZHU Zheng was busy for 2 days in a row about Zhang Yi's affairs. His calls were basically one after another. When it comes to the game between major powers, no detail can be overlooked. Especially since this matter has become a big deal. Other regions in Huaxu Kingdom are paying attention. The first was the inquirers from the Shenjing district, and ZHU Zheng had to find a way to explain them. They must control the conflict within the threshold, and cannot expand the war, because of Zhang Yi or a source of God. After all the busy work, ZHU Zheng was also physically and mentally exhausted. But he thinks it's all worth it. Because Li Lingsu once said, Zhang Yi's upper limit is definitely more than delta level. He is that extremely rare person who has the talent of epsilon or more. That is the existence of one person among hundreds of millions of people. The most powerful one currently known in Huaxu Kingdom, the possessor of the Hell Guillotine ability in the Shenjing region, the transcendent existence codenamed How To, is this kind of natural epsilon. If Zhang Yi can obtain the source of God, he may be able to have power no less than How To. By then, our Jiangnan region will also get rid of the title of having the weakest combat power among the 6 regions. Zhu Zeng took a deep breath and said lightly to himself, Zhang Yi's loyalty is unquestionable. Gao Changkang almost killed him, but Zhang Yi rescued him. The most important thing is that he is a person who has no desire for power. Zhu Zeng is most at ease with this kind of person. If even Zhang Yi cannot be trusted, then no one in the entire Blizzard City will be able to gain his trust. But at this time, he couldn't help but think of Gao Changkang and sighed. If Zhang Yi has the talent of Epsilon, Gao Changkang may also have the same talent. It's just that the past is hard to look back on, and now the two sides are locked in a fight to the death, making it difficult to argue about right or wrong. Just as Zhu Zeng was sighing and sighing, Lan Xincheng came to report that Li Lingsu from the scientific research department came to see him. She also brought a little girl here. When Lan Xincheng said this, he glanced at Li Lingsu next to him, and the little girl behind her who was timidly hiding behind Li Lingsu's legs. She was only 5 or 6 years old, with big eyes, but with a strange ethereal look. Naive and ignorant, like an angel who has just descended into the world. There is a sense of beauty that is ignorant of the world. Lan Xincheng didn't understand why Li Lingsu would bring such a child here. However, Li Lingsu had a bad reputation. People who knew her thought she was a Frankenstein and would often do things that others could not understand. When Zhu Zeng heard this, a strange look appeared in his eyes. Let them come over. Yes. Lan Xincheng allowed Li Lingsu and the little girl to see Zhu Zeng. Since the Gao Changkang incident, the security level around Zhu Zeng has been increased. If you want to see him, you must go through layers of verification. Except for a very few people such as Zhang Yi, no one else could see Zhu Zeng directly. And the godson Luxuan even ate and lived with Zhu Zeng, never leaving his side for a moment. It is said that Zhu Zeng's wife was a little dissatisfied because of this incident, but as a mature woman, she could overcome such trivial matters by herself. Li Lingsu brought the angelic little girl to Zhu Zeng's office. She is? Zhu Zeng looked at the little girl, pointed at her curiously, and asked Li Lingsu, what's the sequence? Li Lingsu wore thick black-rimmed glasses with deep dark circles under her eyes. She always looked like she was awake. Experiment number 486. She is the most special one and the only one who has successfully escaped from the shell. Zhu Zeng's expression suddenly became excited. He stood up from the chair and walked up to the girl who looked as ignorant as a newly hatched chick. The girl hid behind Li Lingsu with some fear. Li Lingsu said to herself, she integrates all latest technology and materials, and the comprehensive index of data in all aspects is extremely high. It can be said that she is the most perfect experimental product we have obtained since the end of the world. Zhu Zeng stretched out his hand to stop Li Lingsu from continuing to speak. No, don't call her that. She should have her own name. Zhu Zeng knelt down and stared at the little girl with a kind face. From now on, your name will be Zhu. Brother Yaos. He climbed to a high place, and there is one less person who planted dogwood all over the place. The girl blinked her big eyes and whispered, Zhu. Chapter 881. Because of Zhu Zeng's order, Blizzard City was in full swing. Although it is unlikely, we still have to be prepared for the Colombian Navy to attack the southeastern coastal cities of the Jiangnan region. As the chief of operations, Tu Yunli had a lot to worry about. In addition to coordinating the various urban alien organizations of the Jiangnan Superpower Federation, some manpower must also be assigned to assist in defense. On this day, he was about to leave the command center when he was suddenly stopped by an old acquaintance. Mr. Tu, please stay. Can I take you a few minutes? Tu Yunli raised his head and saw that the person coming was actually Deng Shentong, the captain of the Xianshan team. This proud man who once had great fame in Blizzard City and was once considered to be Zhu Zeng's successor has lost a lot of his arrogance. The overall situation set by Gao Changkang caused him to lose twice in a row. This caused Deng Shentong's prestige in Blizzard City to plummet, and it also dealt a huge blow to his heart. But at this moment, Tu Yunli stared at Deng Shentong and felt that he had become more mature than before. The impetuousness and arrogance disappeared, and there was restrained humility in his eyes. What's the matter, Captain Deng? A chaotic and dull voice came from under the collar of the thick military uniform. Deng Shentang smiled faintly and stared. I want to enter your Yan Iron Guard for training. And I hope you can train me according to the strictest standards. After his previous failed battle with Gao Changkang, he realized his shortcomings. Although he has extremely high talent, he also has the full support of Deng's technology. These things made him strong, but they also became his dependents. So much so that his basic combat qualities are hard to compare with those of warriors who have emerged from the battlefield of life and death. When a person is young, it is not a good thing if he walks too smoothly, because once you fall, you may never get up again. Deng Shentang thought about it and finally decided to participate in the Yan Iron Guard training, which is known as the most rigorous training in Jiangnan, as an ordinary soldier. In the apocalypse, Yan Yunwei will only select the most powerful warriors. The intensity of the training is more than 3 times stronger than the training of special forces before the end of the world. There is even a 10% mortality rate during training. When Tu Yunli heard Deng Shentang's request, he decisively refused. If you just want to strengthen your own power, your Deng technology has plenty of ways to do it. Even with professional physical training, he is not weaker than Yan Yunwei. My soldiers are all ordinary people, but you are the son of the Deng family. Can it be the same? Although Tu Yunli was dull, he was not stupid at all to be able to sit in this position. If something happened to Deng Shentang during Yan Yunwei's training, how would he explain it to the Deng family and Zhu Zeng? Don't look at Deng Shentang as a captain level alien. But without using his powers, to put it bluntly, some of Tu Yunli's elite men could abuse him casually. Life and death training is no child's play. Of course Deng Shentang could hear Tu Yunli's concerns. He said solemnly, training with Deng's technology can only strengthen my body and abilities, but it cannot temper my will to fight. I can sign the paperwork, and if anything happens to me during training, I will never blame anyone. Minister 2, as the captain of the Xianshan team, I can become stronger, which is of great significance to the defense of the entire Jiangnan region. Please consider this, and agree to my request. He lowered his head, looked at his strong white palms, and clenched his fists hard. I lived too comfortably in the past. If I continue like this, even if Gao Changkang, Zhang Yi and others don't appear, I will be surpassed by other rising stars sooner or later. I can't tolerate this situation. And I can't tolerate myself losing again. Tu Yunli silently listened to Deng Shentang's self-report. He admitted that he was moved by Deng Shentang's words. Deng Shentang is very talented. It's just that the journey has been too smooth, and the Deng family's intention to create gods has made him immersed in his false power and unable to extricate himself. Maybe the blow Gao Changkang and Zhang Yi gave him was a good thing. So he said, as long as you are willing to sign the disclaimer, I don't mind having one more soldier in the Yan Iron training camp. But remember, once you go there, you will no longer have any identity and you will not receive any special care. Even if there is an accident, you will still die. There was a smile in Deng Shentang's eyes, but his expression was extremely firm. I see. And now on the other side of the sea. In order to avoid being pursued by the Colombian Navy, the Jinfeng began to turn around and head toward the southwest as Zhu Zeng said. As a result, they will be farther and farther away from the mainland of Huaxu Kingdom. Next, they could only make a large circle in the sea and rely on the judgment of the sailors to head to the southwest waters of Huaxu Kingdom. It is very dangerous to completely shut down sonar, radar and other corresponding equipment, and the ship cannot be too fast. Otherwise, the ship will easily sink if it encounters a reef or iceberg. Zhang Yi didn't dare to have the slightest carelessness in his heart. He was always thinking about the person Zhu Zeng had mentioned, the Epsilon class alien from the Colombian Ocean Fleet with a power index of 18,000 points. With Zhang Yi's current strength, if he encountered him, I'm afraid no one on the ship would survive. Even if he wants to survive, it depends on the other party's ability. His ability index at this time reached 9600 points, which was the comprehensive rating given by Jiangnan region. However, in fact, his current attack ability is only equivalent to 9300 points of Deng Shentang. But what you sacrifice in exchange for attack strength is a defense capability of about 12,000 points. Space aliens are extremely rare and abnormal beings. If not for this, Zhang Yi would not have been able to block multiple rounds of attacks from Yuan Kang, who had just been promoted to Epsilon when his power index was only over 7,000 points. However, the one from the Colombian Navy had an ability index that was almost twice as high as his. If he has the power to release something like divine power, he can easily destroy my alien space. Killing me instantly won't be a problem. However, if he is an enhanced alien with super close combat capabilities, then my life will basically not be in danger. Zhang Yi touched his chin. So, how big a threat he poses to me depends on his specific abilities? The ability index only represents the intensity of the ability, not the level of strength. In a real duel, there will be an unequal strength gap due to environmental restrictions and ability constraints. For example, if an alien with ice attributes fights in the magma layer, he may lose more than 90% of his strength. This is also why, so far, there has been no outstanding fire attribute alien. Therefore, even if the Colombian Navy man is an Epsilon alien with a power index of 18,000 points, Zhang Yi may not be completely abused by him. It's just that now, he doesn't know what John Cardile's real ability is at all. This is his biggest worry. There is still too little information. Leo ZHU, you are not helpful. Zhang Yi leaned on Zhao Ke's thigh and complained with his eyes closed. Chapter 882 Soothe the Heart. In the ice ocean, undercurrents surge. The atmosphere on the ship became depressed again because of the previous incident. Whether it was the sense of oppression brought by the Colombian Navy or the way Zhang Yi executed traitors such as Cha He-sung, it made other members on the ship feel heavy. Even the crew members were worried about this blind voyage. Losing their heading meant that they had to use a sextant to judge their route as they had done centuries ago. Unfortunately, the sunlight is not obvious now. The white sun has no temperature and can only be seen for a few hours a day. It happened that at this time, the fin dragon that had been lurking in the deep sea showed its figure again. It appeared in the sea several kilometers away from the Jinfeng, and its huge body hundreds of meters long was looming in the waves. The cold and terrifying eyes were like a big light in the deep sea at night, making the crew members on duty scream in fear. Zhang Yi suddenly opened his eyes from his sleep and then arrived on the deck in an instant. But when he appeared, the fin dragon immediately sensed it and dived into the seabed without looking back. Zhang Yi frowned. This thing was too annoying. Zhang Yi didn't have the ability or equipment to dive into the deep sea, so there was really nothing he could do with it. But now, they are on the road to escape and cannot turn on the sonar. It is impossible to detect it in the deep sea in advance. This beast is very smart. It is aware of the situation of the Jinfeng, so it has begun to act unscrupulously recently. It is very patient, waiting for something to happen to the Jinfeng, or for the people on it to be in poor condition before taking action. Zhang Yi returned to the deck and shouted, "Lao Shan." He didn't get a response from Lao Shan. When he turned around, he saw that Lao Shan was leading several crew members who had just gotten up to comfort the frightened crew member on duty. Without sonar feedback, he had no warning about the sudden appearance of the fin dragon. Who wouldn't be frightened to suddenly see this titan-like monster on the sea in the middle of the night? Zhang Yi walked into the control room. The crew member had been taking deep breaths and even put on an oxygen mask. It took a long time to calm down. "Old Shan." Zhang Yi shouted again. Only then did Lao Shan hear Zhang Yi calling him, and he quickly stood up and walked over. "Mr. Zhang." Lao Shan also had a worried look on his face. In recent days, he had a few more wrinkles on his face. He is obviously not yet 50 years old, but the sea breeze blowing all year round makes him look like an old man in his 60s. Check the weapons, especially the depth charges, to make sure they can be released as soon as possible. "Yes, Mr. Zhang." Zhang Yi thought for a while and raised his voice. "Also tell them that the district has sent people to pick us up." There was a calm smile on his face. "Don't worry too much. The Navy of the East China Sea region has been dispatched, and the Navy of Colombia does not dare to confront us head on in this territory. We just need to get through this for a while, and then we can go home." If Zhang Yi had followed his previous temperament, he would not have explained so much to them. But right now, morale on the ship was low, and they needed encouragement. Sure enough, after everyone heard Zhang Yi's words, their eyes showed hope. "Then when can they come over? It's easy for us to sail aimlessly like this and have direction deviations. In fact, it's hard to say which day we will be able to sail to the designated location. The crew members couldn't help but express their doubts. It won't take long. Even if you stay on the ship, I will protect your safety, and I will have supplies that you can't use up in your lifetime. What do you have to worry about? We are all veteran crew members, so don't put a psychological burden on yourself all day long. It's obviously not a big problem, but it's your own heart that collapsed first. In that case, it wouldn't be interesting. After Zhang Yi's guidance, the crew's mentality improved a lot. Although they were all veteran sailors, they sailed at sea for more than 3 consecutive months and only landed on Ganliu Island for half a day. Anyone who often sails knows that this is a test of one's will. After Zhang Yi appeased everyone, he called Lao Shan aside alone. "Can you determine where we are now?" Hearing this, Lao Shan looked a little embarrassed. "Although there are navigation charts, we can only judge the approximate location. And, we can't guarantee that it is correct. This is no longer the age of discovery. Even veteran sailors are highly dependent on electronic devices. It is really difficult to deal with the sudden loss of navigation instruments and rely only on naked eyes, sextant and experience. It's okay. If we get it wrong, we'll try more. At least we have to make sure not to get involved in the Colombian Navy." Lao Shan hurriedly said, "You can rest assured about this. They want to find us now, but they are also looking for a needle in a haystack. If it was so easy to find a ship with all electronic communications turned off, there wouldn't be so many undiscoverable shipwrecks every year. That is." Lao Shan hesitated to speak. Zhang Yi glanced at him. "If you have anything to say, just say it directly." Lao Shan smiled bitterly and said, "The mood of the crew has been really low recently. It won't be good if it continues like this. I know this. Is there any way to solve it?" Zhang Yi asked. Lao Shan thought for a while and said, "Actually, the best ways to relieve sorrow are just those kinds of things. Cigarettes, alcohol, women and gambling. Alcohol has always been prohibited on board the ship. Zhang Yi personally issued the order." Zhang Yi smiled and said, "Okay, starting from today, I will allow you to drink on the ship. I will provide the drinks, but you must give me a guarantee that the personnel on duty must not drink." The ship was in a semi-adrift state anyway, so it wouldn't make much difference to let the crew relax. As for other aspects, you can make up your own mind. Regarding women or young masters, people from the Yanliu group should not touch them. There are some in the bottom cabin. You can use supplies in exchange, but don't force them like pigs or dogs." Lao Shan hurriedly said, "With your order, we will definitely act according to the rules. In addition, I have another request. The area we are in now should be close to the Southern Sea, so there must be some islands around it. Everyone has not been ashore for a long time. If we can let them go ashore to rest, it may be more beneficial to the next voyage." Lao Shan carefully observed the changes in Zhang Yi's expression. After Zhang Yi heard the suggestion, he was indeed a little moved. After all, humans are land animals. After staying at sea for a long time, they will inevitably want to return to land. The feeling of having your feet on solid ground will give you a sense of solid psychological comfort. If you can find a safer land, you can consider landing and rest. Zhang Yi nodded and agreed to Lao Shan's proposal. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 883 Mysterious Sea. The Jinfeng continued to sail forward. But in the following time, the fin dragon appeared around the Jinfeng many times to test. After many contacts, this smart sea monster has captured the movement patterns of the Jinfeng and the powerful human being. Although that powerful human had terrifying fighting power, it seemed that the others on the ship were extremely weak. Moreover, that powerful human being did not have the ability to dive into the deep sea. Therefore, the fin dragon chose another way, which was to constantly harass the surroundings. And every time at this time, Zhang Yi had to appear and drive the fin dragon away. Time and time again, it made him a little annoyed. Because the sonar was turned off, the Jinfeng was unable to capture the position of the fin dragon in advance. Fortunately, Zhang Yi's Time Echo ability can predict the attack of the Fin Dragon in advance. Otherwise, the Jinfeng might have been overturned by the Fin Dragon's sneak attack. Because of this, Zhang Yi's sleep quality also began to deteriorate. He couldn't sleep deeply, otherwise the Golden Edge might be destroyed by the Fin Dragon in his sleep. The other people on the ship can only choose to believe that Zhang Yi can protect them. Many crew members began to use large amounts of alcohol to anesthetize themselves, and the ship was often in a drunken state. It wasn't until 3 days later that a turning point came. That evening, Lao Shan excitedly found Zhang Yi with a pair of dark circles under his eyes and said excitedly, "Mr. Zhang, we seem to have found land." Zhang Yi, like Lao Shan, has not slept well these past few days. Hearing that land had been found, Zhang Yi's eyes flashed with a look of surprise. "Where is it? Can you tell where we are?" This cannot be determined for the time being, because the sea in front is shrouded in large ice fog. But if you can see some islands and reefs, there must be land nearby. Hearing this, Zhang Yi smiled and said, "It's great now. Finding land means leaving the deep sea area. Then the threat posed to them by the Fin Dragon can be easily eliminated. After all, the Fin Dragon's biggest reliance is actually the deep sea." Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes, and he and Lao Shan hurriedly came to the deck. Sure enough, I saw a hazy fog appearing more than 10 nautical miles ahead. The mist was very thick, deep white, with bits of cold ice. In the fog, some small islands and reefs can be vaguely seen. Encountering islands and reefs means the appearance of land. If you continue forward, you may encounter large islands, where you can land and rest. Zhang Yi couldn't help but look back at the sea. In the deep sea bed, the huge sea snake was hiding, waiting for an opportunity to attack the Jinfeng. A sharp light flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. He never likes to leave trouble, and any safety risks will be solved on the spot. Next, they need to evade the pursuit of the Colombian Navy. If they also need to face a sneak attack from a sea monster with a power index of up to 9200 points, they will be overwhelmed. So Zhang Yi decided to make a break with the Fin Dragon in this area. However, this beast is very smart and will not take action without being sure. Zhang Yi said to Lao Shan, "Send the boat into the ice fog. Find a piece of land first and let everyone stop and have a rest." Lao Shan nodded in agreement upon hearing this and immediately returned to the control room to order the crew to sail into the ice mist. In the deep sea, the Fin Dragon watched the Jinfeng slowly leave from the deep sea water. There was a gloomy look in its huge pupils. Because as you move forward, the depth of the water begins to decrease. With its huge size, it will be directly exposed in front of Zhang Yi. As a behemoth of the deep sea, once it reaches the shallows, its combat effectiveness will drop sharply. And without the buffer of seawater, the terrifying void skills released by that powerful human can directly kill most of its life. Squeak. It twisted uneasily in the seawater, venting its anger like a maggot. There were no large fish around it, but some small fish swimming freely. It decided to continue lurking. As long as the opponent does not leave the ocean, sooner or later he will leave the shallow water area in front of him. When the time comes, it will continue to block it. The Jinfeng sailed into the hazy ice fog, and its speed immediately slowed down, because there might be invisible rocks below. Once this thing comes into contact, it will easily cause the Jinfeng to break down. Zhang Yi knew that after the ship sailed here, it was impossible for the Fin Dragon to continue to pursue it. This is the disadvantage of a huge body. It is easy to expose yourself in small places. He did not move forward in a hurry, but asked Lao Shan to park the Jinfeng in a body of water first. Take a day off first, and then make plans. Zhang Yi hadn't had a good night's sleep for a long time. He planned to take a good rest here, to restore himself to his best condition. After Lao Shan received the order, he immediately docked the Jinfeng near an island. The back here is close to the land, and even if the Fin Dragon suddenly attacks, it may come from the front. Kenna, I want to have a good sleep. If you encounter any emergencies that need me to deal with, wake me up immediately. Otherwise, don't disturb me. Zhang Yi said to Zhao Kenna. After hearing this, Zhao Kenna said to him gently, just have a good rest. In order to allow Zhang Yi to sleep more soundly, Zhao Kenna adopted Zhang Yi's favorite sleeping position. That is to let Zhang Yi lie on her lap as a beauty knee pillow. There is nothing softer and more fragrant than this pillow. Sure enough, after Zhang Yi lay on the lap below, he quickly fell asleep and entered his own dreamland. The other people on the boat screamed in excitement when they saw the island reef not far away, which was less than 10 square meters. Seeing the islands and reefs means that they are not far from the land. They had not seen solid land for so long that they were almost going crazy. For the first time, Leo Cheyenne allowed people from the lower cabin to come to the deck to release the depression of the past few days. Zhu Yang, Su Nuangxi, and the people from Yanliu group also ran to the deck. Although it was empty, there was free cold air pouring into their lungs. Several fishermen came over to find Leo Cheyenne and said excitedly, "Vice Captain Cheyenne, can you give us some fishing gear? We want to catch some fish. It would be nice to have some fresh fish for everyone to eat." After getting along for the past few days, the relationship between the crew and the surviving passengers has actually become very good. At least now, everyone is in the same boat and there is a basis for trust between each other. Leo Cheyenne asked them to go to the warehouse to get the fishing rods, put out more, and let everyone relax. Leo Cheyenne said with a smile. The passengers on deck cheered with joy, for they were so lacking in leisure. Chapter 884 Strange Fish. On the deck of the Jinfeng, everyone was jubilant at the long-lost relaxing time. They were lying on the railing, regardless of the severe cold that had dropped to more than 40 degrees below zero, greedily breathing the cold and refreshing salty air from the outside world. Zhu Yang and Su Nuangxi stood in front of the railing. Zhu Yang held the tightly wrapped Tommy in his arms. Compared to others, the two of them could only force a smile. Because during this period, they not only had to worry about the attacks of sea monsters and the pursuit of the Colombian army. The biggest worry does not come from the outside world, but from the baby they take care of together. The 1-year-old child is so noisy that he sleeps and eats irregularly every day. She often wakes up with a wow sound in the middle of the night, and then makes Zhu Yang and Su Nuangxi unable to sleep all night long. From the beginning, the two were overflowing with maternal love, then their patience gradually disappeared, and now they are on the verge of collapse. Looking at the cold sea water in front of him, Zhu Yang suddenly had such an idea in his heart. Just throw him away. Anyway, no one is paying attention now. Just throw him away and treat it as if it never happened. Anyway, I was the one who saved him in the first place, and now I don't owe him anything if I throw him away. Such a terrifying thought. When Zhu Yang came back to his senses, he couldn't help but feel chills running down his back. How could she have such evil thoughts? No, she's not like that. She's a kind person. She's just tired. At this time, Zhu Yang accidentally saw Zhang Yi playing with the students not far away. She and several students from Tsingtao were trying to hang frozen fish on hooks and throw them into the sea for fishing. Her husband Zhang Yi stood aside with a smile and taught them the technique of throwing poles. It looked so harmonious. Zhu Yang came up with an idea. She is a teacher and she should like children very much. She also knows how to take care of children better than me. Zhu Yang didn't think she was passing the blame. She felt like she was just looking for a better nanny for Tommy. So Zhu Yang held the child and walked towards Zhang Yi. Seeing Zhu Yang, Zhang Yi and Zhang Yi both said hello politely. After getting along for a long time, they also knew that Zhu Yang was a family member of a leader in Jiangnan region. But on this ship, Zhu Yang didn't seem to have much say. In addition, she had acted in a self-righteous manner several times before, which actually made the passengers on the ship look down on her in their hearts. "Ms. Zhang, you seem to like children very much." Zhu Yang stared at Zhang Yi and tried his best to smile. Zhang Yi didn't understand what he meant, but she still said politely, "Originally, my husband and I planned to have one this year. Who knew what would happen later?" Zhu Yang's eyes lit up. "If that's the case, then why don't you consider adopting one? Look how cute this baby is. As long as you are willing to raise him, I can provide you with the food he needs in the future." Zhu Yang couldn't wait to hand the child over. But Zhang Yi and Zhang Yi looked strange. Zhang Yi touched his nose awkwardly, but Zhang Yi smiled faintly. She looked at Tommy in Zhu Yang's hands and first complimented, "What a cute baby. But I'm really sorry. In our current situation, it's very difficult to take care of ourselves. There is really no way to support another child. Zhu Yunk's smile froze on his face. The delivery of the baggage failed. I thought you liked children. Zhang Yi smiled politely and said, I like it, but it depends on the situation, right? When the environment is not suitable for reproduction, even animals will stop reproducing. We don't even want our own children, let alone. She glanced at the blue-eyed doll. We are raising other people's children. The two politely apologized to Zhu Yunk. Zhu Yunk's face looked a little gloomy, but he could only hug Tommy tightly and walk away. Zhang Yi and Zhang Yi watched her leave. Zhang Yi couldn't help but whisper, should I say she is kind or naive? Zhang Yi sighed, probably both. But in the current environment, having these two qualities at the same time is a kind of cruelty. Soon they forgot about the Scarlet Skylark incident and went fishing happily. The fishing rod in a fisherman's hand suddenly sank, and he shouted happily, I got it, I got it. He pulled hard on the fishing rod, trying to pull the fish up. So strong, he must be a big guy. I guess he weighs 100 pounds. But the harder he exerted force, the heavier the strength in his hands became. Just when he was about to pull up the big guy in the sea with all his strength, a huge force suddenly came from the opposite direction and dragged him directly into the sea. Plop. There was a sound and water splashed everywhere. There were sounds of ridicule from all around, but Liu Shan shouted, hurry up and get people. It's such a cold day, you are so far away from me, you will freeze to death if you are not careful. The people around realized the seriousness of the problem and hurried to find the rope ladder to save people. But at this moment, the water surface suddenly surged violently and black blood appeared. Goo doo doo. The fisherman who was dragged into the water struggled hard for a few times. Only his arms were seen fluttering on the water, and then he completely lost his movement. The air suddenly became quiet. A fisherman was actually eaten by a fish? But before they could recover, a scream suddenly came from other directions. The sound of whoosh and whoosh can be heard in the air. From all directions of the Jinfeng, black shadows emerged from the seabed one after another, heading straight for the people on the ship. Puff puff. The bodies of 5 or 6 passengers were pierced by the black shadow and fell directly to the ground. There was a howl on the deck. When Liu Shan took a closer look, he discovered that what penetrated the passenger's body was a ferocious and terrifying fish. It was more than 3 meters long, was as black as oil, had no eyes, and had 2 rows of sharp teeth in its mouth. The most terrifying thing is that there is a barbed horn over 1 meter long on the top of its head. After piercing the passenger's body, it began to gnaw at the internal organs, and soon there was blood everywhere on the deck. Mutated swordfish. Liu Shan quickly realized what this was. He picked up the gun in his hand, and while cleaning the mutated swordfish on the boat, he shouted, passengers, please get back to the cabin. Those who work, copycats. The crew members were relatively experienced at sea, and did not panic. It's just some mutated swordfish that can be dealt with thermal weapons. For a moment, the passengers ran into the cabin in panic, while Liu Shan led people outside to clean up the flying swordfish. Chapter 885 Zoomy 3 Worlds. The mutated swordfish is so lethal that it can even pierce steel plates. Fortunately, Zhang Yi prepared special body armor for the crew, so being stabbed would not cause penetrating injuries. They used firearms to fight back. After dealing with it for a long time and killing dozens of mutated swordfish, the golden edge returned to calm. Liu Shan wiped the blood from his mask, then turned to Liu Zi and asked Liu Zi to bring a group of people to deal with all the mutated swordfish. They don't dare to eat it for the time being. Who knows if they will get sick after eating this stuff. Zhang Yi was in the room, listening to the gunshots, but unexpectedly slept very soundly. Time Echo did not give any warning, which meant that there was no danger. The melodious sound of gunshots and the cry of the mutated swordfish became a kind of white noise to aid sleep. This time, he slept until night. The Jinfeng sailed out of the thick ice fog, and it was pitch black. Only the lights in the control room were still on. The night was pitch black. The sea is as deep as an abyss. The head of the fin dragon slowly emerged from the water, and its huge body gave people a natural sense of terror and oppression. It was dark, and there was no movement on the ship. According to Finasaur's observations over the past few days, the people on the boat must have fallen asleep at this time. There was a cruel and cunning look in its eyes. What it likes to do most is hunt down tired enemies. The fin dragon slowly dived into the water, swinging its huge body towards the deep sea. A few seconds later, it quickly returned, carrying a huge wave with it. Boom. The fin dragon jumped out of the water and set off waves more than 10 meters high, hitting the Jinfeng overwhelmingly. At this moment, Zhang Yi's figure appeared outside the Jinfeng, the gate of the dimension. The huge dimensional gate was like a heavenly gate blocking the golden front, and all the waves were swallowed up. Zhang Yi's eyes were burning with raging anger. Damn beast, have you given me face? I will definitely kill you today. He took out the Hengdao Shengju, and the black void power flowed like flames, turning into a chain tens of meters long, circling around his body. Zhang Yi took one step forward, and two-dimensional doors opened in front of him, separated by hundreds of meters, in order to achieve the purpose of teleportation. In an instant, he came to the top of the fin dragon's head, and slashed it down with a sharp knife. A look of fear appeared in the fin dragon's eyes. It roared angrily, and a powerful force burst out from the sharp horn on its head. The purple beam shot towards Zhang Yi. The black void chain and the purple beam collided in the air. In just a moment, the purple beam was shattered. But the fin dragon is also extremely cunning. When it sees that it can't be defeated, it swims directly into the deep sea. But this time, Zhang Yi didn't plan to let him go anymore. He did not hesitate, and dived directly into the bottom of the sea. The helmet of the combat uniform had been put down, and he had turned it into diving mode. The combat suit contains compressed liquid oxygen, which can sustain his breathing for 5 hours. The fin dragon didn't seem to expect that a mere human would dare to enter the ocean and become its enemy, and suddenly its eyes showed a cunning look like humans. It knew that it had successfully angered that powerful yet small human being. Squeaky the fin dragon made a mocking sound happily, and at the same time turned around and shot a purple beam of light at Zhang Yi. When humans enter the water, their movements will be severely inconvenient. But after several months of sailing at sea, Zhang Yi finally found a way to solve this problem. The echo of time allowed Zhang Yi to predict the attack of the fin dragon in advance, and he used the thruster to quickly avoid it. Then, he launched his ability, Two Worlds Absolute Knot, in the deep sea. The Absolute Tie of Two Realms, a variant skill of the Gate of Dimensions. When Zhang Yi unfolds the two doors at the same time, they become flexible and turn into a ball like a dumpling, to resist any attacks from the outside world. Let Zhang Yi be in a strange world that looks like this world, but is actually separated by a door of another dimension. But when the knot between the two realms was opened, seawater poured into it crazily. It's time to show off my warehouse manager skills. Faced with the crazy influx of seawater into the alien space, Zhang Yi did not panic at all, and once again used another ability, a space management ability. He can divide different spaces into many independent cubic spaces, which are isolated from each other, and have no connection with each other. He named it, Zoomy 3000 Worlds. You only need to absorb all the seawater into a small world, to achieve a balance between the different space and the seawater. You can even manipulate the direction of seawater flow to achieve movement. And all I need to prepare is enough oxygen, that's all. Zhang Yi let the seawater quickly fill the entire independent space. At this time, the water pressure inside and outside reached a balanced state, and he was isolated from the sea by the two worlds, relying on the oxygen in the combat suit to maintain breathing. At this point, he was finally able to move freely in the ocean. The most important thing is that this approach can balance the pressure of the seawater, allowing him to dive into the deep sea without worrying about being crushed. I'm afraid that only when you dive into the meter ocean, you need to worry that the two worlds will not be able to withstand the too strong water pressure. And now this level is enough for him to hunt down the fin dragon. Now, it's my turn to hunt you down. Zhang Yi stared at the huge fin dragon on the bottom of the sea, with murderous intent surging in his eyes. He must solve this huge trouble in advance so as to avoid being attacked on both sides when encountering the Colombian Navy. The fin dragon didn't expect that tiny human being could pursue him into the deep sea. When the seawater was no longer an obstacle to Zhang Yi's actions, the last gap between him and the fin dragon was also smoothed. Now, here is a battle between an alien with a power index of 9600 points and a deep sea beast with a power index of 9200 points. The Holy Inquisitor erupted in black void flames in his hand and swept forward. The gate of dimension. One side can pass through. His attacks can pass through, but the attacks of the Pinosaurus cannot. The powerful force quickly penetrated the seawater, setting off a huge frenzy on the bottom of the sea, and arrived in front of the fin dragon in an instant. Its huge body twisted wildly in an attempt to dodge the blow, but sometimes being too big was not always a good thing. For example, now, its tail is swept to the tail by the black flames of the void. Just a small scratch caused a large number of scales on its skin to fall off, and its flesh and blood flew everywhere. Squeak the fin dragon let out a painful and angry roar. As the overlord of the deep sea, except for some terrifying existences in the deepest part of the ocean, when has it ever received such treatment in shallow seas? Its body quickly spiraled, stirring up the ocean currents, and soon formed a huge whirlpool. It tried to use its size advantage to make Zhang Yi unbalanced in the seawater. However, all this is of no use to Zhang Yi. The different space exists independently from him. No matter how turbulent the water is, when it passes through the junction of two realms, it is like passing through a door with no thickness. No matter how strong the tide is, it cannot move, or damage it at all. This is the strength of the strongest alien defined by Jiangnan region as absolute defense. Chapter 886 You can 039 think. From now on, offense and defense will change. The beast can go, so can I. When Zhang Yi fights against others, he always first establishes himself in an invincible position. The two attack methods of the fin dragon rely on its huge size and the high energy particle shock waves emitted from the apex of its head. But at this time both methods lost their effect on Zhang Yi. Then, no matter how Zhang Yi plays, he will win. The only thing he needs to worry about is whether he will win. Kill. Today I want to see how delicious the original power of sea beasts is. Zhang Yi moved forward quickly in the seawater. With the blessing of the propeller, his speed was as fast as flying in the air. The fin dragon roared angrily while swimming and escaping in the seawater, while constantly looking back to try to fight back. The beast's natural early warning ability allowed it to know that there was a huge danger around Zhang Yi, and that approaching to attack would not work. But the high energy particle light emitted from its sharp corners was absorbed by the weird space, and then reflected back to attack itself. The fin dragon almost became anxious. This is simply cheating. Why are you playing with this? He chases it. It flees. It is doomed. Zhang Yi chased after the fin dragon's butt. No matter where it ran, he chased after its butt and slashed wildly. Even if he dives into the deep sea, Zhang Yi is confident. The fin dragon screamed angrily, almost wanting to curse. Fortunately, it had rough skin and thick flesh. It had been slashed more than a dozen times, and there were cuts all over its back. The bloody injuries were shocking, and its scales fell off all the way, but it didn't stop. After chasing for dozens of miles, the fin dragon suddenly swung its tail in the seawater, bypassed Zhang Yi, and swam towards the sea. It suddenly figured out what Zhang Yi's weakness was. From the beginning, Zhang Yi himself was not afraid of it. The reason why he held back every time was simply because he couldn't let go of the other people on that ship. The fin dragon figured this out. If I can't control you, why can't I control your weaknesses? Do him. Zhang Yi's reaction was slow for a moment, then he turned around and chased after the fin dragon. The fin dragon felt the urgent pursuit behind him, and his eyes showed a cheerful smile. It knew it had guessed correctly. Hey, I can't kill you, but I can kill your companions. I can still make you miserable and desperate. The fin dragon was making such calculations in his heart. The sea surface was getting closer and closer, and the Jinfeng without Zhang Yi's protection just stopped quietly on the sea surface, like a defenseless baby. All it takes is one charge from the fin dragon to split it in half right in the middle. But just when the fin dragon's excited charge was about to touch the Jinfeng, Zhang Yi, who was chasing behind, suddenly stopped. He stopped 1,000 meters away from the Jinfeng and silently pressed a button on his arm. The head of the fin dragon penetrated the solid bottom of the golden edge, like a knife piercing wood. But at this moment, its eyes suddenly became bright. It was a very blazing light, and it suddenly turned into a huge ball of light in front of its eyes, like a sun exploding in front of it. Not only is it as bright as the sun, it is also as hot as the sun. The whole fin dragon was confused. But there was no time for it to be stunned, as a huge shock wave swept directly towards it. Boom. The force of the explosion was centered on the Jinfeng and struck in all directions. The fin dragon at the bottom of the ship bore the brunt and was thrown away like a slutty snake. Zhang Yi quickly retreated, trying to stay away from the explosion area, because he knew how terrifying the explosion on the Jinfeng was. What he arranged on the ship was explosives equivalent to 10 tons of TNT. To put it bluntly, even his alien space would have a hard time absorbing this level of energy explosion at once. No matter how strong the fin dragon's defense is, it cannot be superior to his alien space. In order to set up this trap for fin dragon, Zhang Yi did not hesitate to use an icebreaker as bait. After entering the ice fog area, he had arranged in advance for Lao Shan to take the people away. As for what to do without the boat, this point is relatively simple. Who said that he only brought a boat with him when he went out? He had already considered the possibility of shipwrecks at sea and problems. So he already had spare ships in his different dimension. I believe that the fin dragon could not imagine this at all. But now, Zhang Yi must make a quick decision. Such a high energy explosive reaction may attract the attention of the Colombian Navy. He must kill the fin dragon as soon as possible and then use the ability to travel through space to leave. By then, even if the Colombian Navy arrives, they will not be able to find them hiding deep in the ice fog. Before the shock wave of the explosion completely dissipated, Zhang Yi held the Holy Inquisitor and chased after the fin dragon. At this time, it was like a long worm being blown away, covered in blood and flesh, and extremely miserable. The damage caused to it by the self-destruction of the Jinfeng was more terrifying than the dozens of knives Zhang Yi had done before combined, because it is directly at the center of the explosion. So for a moment, the entire dragon was stunned, its face was bloody, and its eyes were blind. Zhang Yi quickly chased after him and slashed with his knife. Take advantage of your illness to kill you. The fin dragon instinctively felt the strong murderous intention. At this time, he still had no courage to resist. He tried his best and just wanted to escape deeper into the deep sea. But its injuries were too serious, and it couldn't swim faster. Zhang Yi quickly caught up with it and struck it hard with a knife in the back. The huge flames of the void spread hundreds of meters, tightly wrapping around its body like a soul-eating chain. The terrifying power of the void corroded its already damaged body, directly exploding the flesh and blood on its huge body. Squeak the fin dragon couldn't help screaming and ran away into the sea with all its strength. The blood attracted the attention of many sea beasts around, but the coercion of the two top powerhouses intimidated them, making them dare not approach at all. Zhang Yi is unpretentious, like a cook who kills chickens, and has a lot of patience to chase. The fin dragon was so angry that he wanted to resist before dying several times. However, the strength gap between the two sides is too large. It cannot break Zhang Yi's defense, and counterattack will only accelerate its death. Finally, after it dived to a depth of more than 3,000 meters, it was pitifully hacked to death by Zhang Yi. Such a huge body and such a powerful sea beast were the only things Zhang Yi had ever seen in his life. Not wanting to waste anything, he directly took the body of the fin dragon into his own alien space, and then hurriedly surfaced. The entire sea area was dyed red with its blood, and Zhang Yi had to leave quickly. Because this may attract other powerful beings in the deep sea, it is more likely that the Colombian Navy was attracted by the previous explosion. Chapter 887 Improvement, +1. Deep in the fog, Lao Shan had already driven the new icebreaker Zhiao several hundred nautical miles ahead of schedule in accordance with Zhang Yi's order. The ice and fog here are the best natural barrier. Coupled with their active stealth, even if Colombia's most advanced ships came here, they would not be able to find a trace. Again, without the search capabilities of electronic equipment, human ships would be like headless flies on the vast sea. Although the Zhiao is smaller than the Jinfeng, it still has no big problem carrying these passengers. At that time, Zhang Yi watched helplessly as he conjured an icebreaker out of thin air. The other passengers on the boat were frightened. They were even more in awe of Zhang Yi. Even though some people had some objections to Zhang Yi before, now they have become devout admirers of Zhang Yi because of his strength. About an hour after Zhang Yi left, he suddenly returned to the ship. His body was spotless, and he still looked calm and composed. But he found Lao Shan immediately and asked him to speed up and hide deep in the ice mist. What a brilliant plan you have. Liu Shan said to Zhang Yi with a look of admiration. By detonating the Jinfeng, a heroic feat of breaking one's arms, not only can we eliminate our big troublesome fins, but it can also give the illusion that we are all dead in the deep sea. This will deceive the Colombian Navy and buy time for us to escape back. Mr. Zhang, you are really a great strategist. Zhang Yi was slightly startled. Did I think so? I thought I just wanted to kill that finned dragon simply because of lack of sleep. Ah, you are right. Liu Shan, you have really made progress recently. I didn't expect that you would discover such a secret plan of mine. Zhang Yi patted Liu Shan on the shoulder with approval. I'm such a talent. I hope I can trick the Colombian Navy. After all, Colombia has not been able to confirm his identity at this time. And the best explanation for the sinking of a huge icebreaker at sea is that everyone on the ship died. Otherwise, he would have been rescued by a ship from Huaxu Kingdom. Regardless of the outcome, the Colombian Navy had no reason to continue pursuing it. Hope things will develop as he wants. As he expected, such a high energy explosion on the sea attracted the attention of the Colombian Navy patrolling nearby. They arrived at the site of the explosion more than an hour later, only to find the Jinfeng burning and sinking to the bottom of the sea. Colombia's Navy was stunned. After repeated confirmations, they concluded that this ship was the Huaxu ship that the Copernicus was chasing. But now, it suddenly exploded and sank in a sea area. However, no land was found around here. It is obviously unrealistic to enter the deep and cold seabed for exploration. Searching vessels reported to headquarters. The headquarters is also very confused. A powerful alien who was able to sink the Copernicus by himself, but the whole ship was involved in an accident at sea. This is not impossible, because no matter how powerful human beings are, they are still small compared to the mysterious deep sea. After confirming the situation nearby, the ship responsible for the search immediately returned and decided that the top brass of the Navy would make the decision. The news reached the ears of Grito Douglas, Commander-in-Chief of the Colombian Ocean Fleet. He heard the news, thought for a moment, and decisively gave his order. The search mission cannot be stopped. This matter involves very important intelligence. Don't give up at any chance. Send a salvage ship and use a diving bell to dive into the deep sea for inspection. Only by seeing the body of the stranger on board can we confirm that they were killed at sea. The Navy will make arrangements immediately. However, the time they spent in that sea area exceeded 1 day. At this time, Zhang Yi and the others had already run away. After the fin dragon was dealt with, everyone on the boat breathed a sigh of relief. At least now they didn't have to worry all day long. You know, it's not a pleasant feeling to be stared at by a giant beast hundreds of meters long in the middle of the ocean. Zhang Yi came to a vacant warehouse and cut off the head of the fin dragon. Its entire body cannot be removed at all, otherwise the entire ship will be sunk. But this head alone is 4 to 5 meters long. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. He had never tried to absorb the origin of a strange beast before, so he didn't know if it would work. He put his hand on the head of the pterygoid the human way. The next moment, an extremely huge source of power poured into his body. Sure enough, the mutated creatures are all the same. Zhang Yi could clearly feel that his power had become stronger. But it's not enough. It's still not enough to break through that boundary. But his improvement is also very obvious, and there is no dilemma that Deng Yuanbo mentioned at the beginning, that after a stranger reaches a certain level, it is difficult to improve, no matter how he absorbs the source. According to Zhang Yi's estimation, absorbing such a top delta level beast brought his power index to around 9700 points. This also made Zhang Yi realize that his potential was far higher than that of Deng Shentang and others. Maybe it's because they rely too much on technology and hard work to improve their strength. And I'm all natural. Zhang Yi thought to himself. But one thing is certain, it is easier for him to break through to the Epsilon realm than it is for Deng Shentang and others. Perhaps, even if he does not rely on the source of God, as long as he can absorb more of the origins of these powerful alien beasts or aliens, he can reach the standard of Epsilon's power index. The source of God, what's so magical about that thing? Zhang Yi murmured. If it's just something that allows people to break through genetic limitations, maybe it's not needed for him now. Because he is not an ordinary captain level existence like Deng Shentang, he is far from reaching his shackles. The further back you go, the more obvious the gap in talent becomes. Be it him, Gao Changkong, or Yuan Kangai, they are all strangers born with higher upper limits. And the one in Shengjing is said to have received the power of the source of God. However, Zhang Yi knew nothing about her information and could not make a judgment. Zhang Yi had a new understanding of supernatural powers at this time. He even had the urge to continue hunting powerful beasts in the sea to upgrade. However, this idea was only thought about for a moment and was quickly dismissed by Zhang Yi. Because he passed through such a large sea area along the way, if he hadn't encountered a battle between strange beasts by chance, he might not have encountered a finned dragon. After all, this kind of deep sea giant snake usually does not move in shallow sea areas. If you really want to hunt more powerful beasts, you can only go deep into the deepest part of the sea. But think about the environment of the deep sea. Both the species and the number of creatures there far exceed those on land. It is almost certain that there are terrifying beasts on the level of Epsilon. The bottom of the sea is too dangerous. I'd better go find the source of God honestly, Zhang Yi murmured. After all, he already knew the location of the source of God, so there was no need to venture into the deep sea. 888 Mermaid. Zhang Yi still didn't know how much impact his act of self-destructing the Jimpfeng in the ocean had, because they completely closed all communication channels. This caused Jiangnan region and Anhui region to think that they had an accident. Although ZHU Zheng always believed that Zhang Yi was a stable man and would not be killed at sea. But caring is messy. Zhang Yi has information about the source of the gods, and his niece ZHU Yunk is also on board. So he urgently contacted Team Rose and asked Ling Hufixu to investigate the explosion area, and contacted the East China Sea region to ask them to put pressure on the Colombian Navy. The situation in the East China Sea region suddenly became extremely tense. Both sides had dispatched a large number of ships and strangers, and it is hard to say when their guns will accidentally go off. At this time, what are Zhang Yi and the others doing? They walked aimlessly through the ice and fog area, hoping to find a piece of land to rest as soon as possible. A few days later, they came to a sea area. Zhang Yi was sitting in front of the window reading a book, while Zhao Kena was rubbing his shoulders behind him. Suddenly, Zhang Yi's ears moved, and he seemed to hear a faint singing voice. It's like the graceful singing voice of a beautiful lady. Zhang Yi couldn't help but ask, who is singing? Zhao Kena was stunned for a moment. Warmed the loneliness? Zhang Yi said, someone is really singing. Did you hear it? When Zhang Yi asked, Zhao Karen immediately pricked up his ears. Zhang Yi's hearing is relatively keen, and when she listened carefully, she heard a burst of misty singing intermittently. It seems to be coming from far away. Speaking of this, she said curiously, it's strange. This is the sea. How come there are people singing? Could it be that we are already close to the land? The visibility in the ice and fog area is very poor, and the voyage of the Xiaoyao is almost the same as drifting. The visible field of view is only a few dozen meters, and he might be near an island on the sea at some point. Zhang Yi stood up curiously after hearing this. Come on, let's go out and see. He was very cautious and put on combat uniforms for himself and Zhao Kena before walking out of the cabin. At this time, other people on the boat had already been attracted by the singing. The long sea voyage made them too empty and lonely, and the singing of the sea was undoubtedly the best medicine for them to relieve their boredom. A group of people lay on the railings and looked into the depths of the ice mist, trying to see clearly what was coming from the direction of the singing. Is it a fishing boat? It's also possible for fishermen at sea. There are many small islands in the sea, isolated from the world. They may not be greatly affected by the apocalypse. Who is the singer? Su Nuangxi held her heart in her hands and said with hope, I heard that the songs on the sea may be sung by mermaids. Do you think we have met a mermaid? Zhang Yi happened to come over, and when he heard this sentence, he said expressionlessly, anything that lives in the water all year round, even if it is really a mermaid, must be covered in fish scales. Are you sure that thing is what you imagined? Su Nuangxi's face suddenly froze, and she couldn't help but turn a little pale when she thought of an animal that was covered in scales, had a wide mouth, and lived by eating fish. ZHU Young combed his hair and said, I have heard of the legend of sea monsters. They would sing on the sea to trick the crew into sailing the ship. In the end, they all hit the rocks and sank. Leo Cheyenne and other crew members all laughed when they heard this. That's just a fairy tale. But there are indeed animals in the sea that make sounds similar to human babies, such as dolphins and some species of whales. Zhang Yi looked into the distance while listening to Leo Cheyenne talking about his adventures when he went to sea. This was the nth time he repeated it in front of everyone. But as he listened, Zhang Yi's eyes suddenly straightened. Because the thick ice fog in front of him slowly dissipated, he actually saw a mermaid on a reef. The body of a human, the lower body of a fish, and the upper body of a beautiful mermaid with a curvy figure and long red hair. And that song came from the mermaid's mouth. Zhang Yi looked at the scene in front of him in astonishment. The mermaid seemed to feel Zhang Yi's gaze and looked back. Her face was extremely beautiful, more beautiful than any woman Zhang Yi had ever seen, and almost flawless. The melodious melody in her mouth does not belong to any language that Zhang Yi knows. It is melodious and graceful, as if it comes from the mysterious underwater dragon palace. The moment she saw Zhang Yi, a bright smile appeared on her face, and then she jumped from the reef into the water. It rises and falls briskly on the sea surface, like a dolphin. Soon, she came to Zhang Yi. The wet and smooth arms grabbed the railing and stared at Zhang Yi with a smile. Even Zhang Yi felt haunted by such a scene, as if he had fallen into a fairy tale world. But at this moment, a warning sounded in my heart. Time echo instinctively made his body react to retreat. Zhang Yi was shocked. The mermaid in front of him had opened her soft arms, revealing her fair chest, and threw herself into his arms. The scene in front of him changed, and the light and shadow Zhang Yi saw immediately changed. In an instant, from stunning beauty to extremely ugly. Where is the beautiful mermaid? It was clearly a dark and ugly fish, covered in black mucus, and a strange fish with a huge mouth. Fuck. Instinctively, Zhang Yi cursed loudly, and cold sweat broke out from behind. A blast of divine power distorted the space and directly exploded that disgusting strange fish into powder. But at this time, there were strange cries on the boat. There was not only one strange fish, but 3 or 4 of them had already rushed onto the boat, pounced on the passengers, and started to bite them. They make baby-like sounds from their mouths, and their low melody makes people drowsy. The chests of those passengers who were chewed were empty, but they still had happy smiles on their faces. Zhang Yi felt horrified that this strange fish could use sound to hypnotize him. If he didn't have the ability to echo through time, he might have been accidentally tricked just now. Seeing that everyone on the boat had been attacked, Zhang Yi knew that he could not wake them up, so he directly pulled out the Holy Inquisition. The black void flame turned into a long snake and killed all the strange fish on the boat in an instant. Since this thing uses sound to hypnotize, Zhang Yi plans to use the same method to crack it. He turned on the voice playback system of his combat uniform, raised the volume to the maximum, and yelled, "Wake up, everyone." The eardrums hurt when listening to the deafening sound. Everyone woke up with a start, only to find that the beautiful illusions in front of them had disappeared. Instead, there were several hideous and terrifying black monster fish corpses on the boat, as well as their companions whose chests had been eaten out. They suddenly screamed in fright. Chapter 889 Strange Death. Cheer up, everyone. Many creatures in the ocean have mutated and are much more dangerous than on land. Zhang Yi shouted loudly and at the same time began to clean up the ugly strange fish still pretending to be mermaids on the reef. Fortunately, they only have the ability to confuse people's minds, and their own combat effectiveness is very weak. Leo Cheyenne and other crew members took out their rifles and fired, quickly killing many of the strange fish. The remaining strange fish saw that the situation was not good and immediately got into the sea. But when the Zhao sailed far away, the melodious music sounded again among the rocks. Zhang Yi asked everyone to quickly return to the cabin. No one is allowed to come out again until it is safe. Don't underestimate the sea. Zhang Yi couldn't help but feel chills running down his back when he thought about everything that had just happened. In an era of great change, there are all kinds of strange abilities. This seemingly weak monster fish has abilities that almost caught him, a top Delta level stranger. Everyone was also frightened. There are so many weird things in the ocean, it's better for us to be careful. I thought the powerful sea monster was the scariest thing, but I didn't expect that this little strange fish almost killed me. have to guard against it. This incident also gave Zhang Yi a wake-up call. Even though he is getting stronger and stronger, he cannot be careless, because the world is full of dangers. He must be cautious and cautious. Even lions and tigers can be defeated by tiny mosquitoes. There are some weird things in this sea area. Patrols are strengthened every day. No matter what weird things you encounter, you must report to me. Zhang Yi ordered Lao Shan. Yes, Mr. Zhang. Lao Shan ordered the crew members to work in pairs and patrol the ship 24 hours a day from now on. The fifth day deep into the icy fog sea. That night, it was already dark, and the lights on the boat were dim. On the side of the rock flow group, a woman slowly climbed up from the boat, then glanced at her sleeping companions next to her, then tiptoed, put on her clothes, and climbed out of bed. She walked along the corridor to the bathroom at the end. She had her menstrual period in the past few days, and suddenly felt stomach discomfort in the middle of the night, so she had to go to the bathroom. The middle cabin, where the rock flow group is located, will be broken at night. Fortunately, the corridor only has one long aisle, so you can walk through it in the dark. She stepped lightly on the floor and groped forward, pressing her aching belly with one hand, and moving forward was a little difficult. After arriving in the bathroom, she solved her problem as quickly as possible. But while going to the toilet, a bolt of lightning pierced the night sky outside. The woman's name was Beijing Gaiyu. She seemed to notice something outside the window, and took a hurried look. But when I looked up, I found nothing. Beijing Gaiyu thought it was her own psychological effects, but out of fear, she still cleaned up hastily, then opened the bathroom door and hurried back. Clatter clatter clatter. It was extremely quiet at midnight, and the crew patrolling outside had also entered the control room. Beijing Gaiyu's footsteps were somewhat clear. This made her a little scared, because it sounded like there was something hidden in her footsteps. Beijing Gaiyu gradually felt an uneasy feeling in her heart. She swallowed slowly and looked around timidly, but the surroundings were empty and there was nothing. Beijing Gaiyu's breathing became rapid and she quickened her pace, wanting to return to the room as quickly as possible. But when she turned around, she suddenly saw something, which made her pupils dilate suddenly and her mouth opened wide to shout. However, her vocal cords had not yet had time to make a sound. It seems that something has appeared. Her mouth opened wider and wider, even twisting into a weird arc that was unlike anything humans could open. Beijing Gaiyu's hands dropped down and twisted like claws. Suddenly, her body began to twitch violently, but after a few seconds, she regained her composure. Beijing Gaiyu stood in the long corridor, the shadow covering her face, making her expression unclear. But a few seconds later, she walked slowly back to her room, then lifted the quilt and fell asleep. The next day, Beijing Gaiyu got up and had a meal as usual. The acquaintances around her thought she looked a little strange and came over to ask if she was sick. Beijing Gaiyu just said calmly, "It's okay, my period is coming." Hearing this, others could only smile and comfort him without asking any more questions. Anyone who has ever had a menstrual period knows that women must not be provoked during this period, otherwise they will definitely die miserably. And that night, it was late at night again. Everyone fell into sleep. Beijing Gaiyu suddenly opened his eyes. She walked barefoot to the bed of the person who greeted her during the day, her eyes cold and dull, like a walking zombie. The dim light outside stretched her shadow on the wall. Her mouth split open quickly, and then something more than 1 meter long suddenly emerged from her mouth, and then wrapped around the person's face. He struggled desperately, but there was no movement after just a few seconds. A faint sucking sound came from the silent room. After all this was over, Beijing Gaiyu returned to her bed again, quietly covered herself with a quilt, closed her eyes and fell asleep. Early the next morning, someone in the room got up in the morning to use the toilet. He habitually patted the brother next door and wanted to drag him over, but as soon as he stretched out his hand, it suddenly sank. Out of curiosity, the man thought the brother next door had already gotten up, but when he turned around, he suddenly screamed uncontrollably. The fearful and shrill screams startled everyone in the room, and even the people next door were woken up by the sound. What happened? Who's shouting? The people in the room had just woken up and were still confused. The man fell to the ground in fright, his eyes widened, and pointed in the direction of the bed. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Mummy. The people in the room immediately focused their attention on the bed. When they saw the scene in front of them clearly, their expression suddenly changed with fear. The man on the bed seemed to have had his flesh and blood sucked dry, his cheeks were deeply sunken, and his skin was tightly wrapped around his skull. The two shriveled eyeballs were still in their sockets, staring dryly upward. Quick, go tell the people on the boat. They killed someone. Someone killed another person on the ship. Some people with fragile hearts couldn't help, but started shouting in panic. The news quickly spread to Laoshan. Laoshan came down with people and guns. People in the next room heard the news and gathered around to join in the fun, talking in various ways. Get out of the way, get out of the way. Laoshan came over with the gun. Several talkers from the Yan Liu group, Li Zhang, Ma Wenzheng and Zhang Yi, were all here. Seeing Laoshan coming, he said hello to him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 890, The Monster in the Sea. Laoshan walked over cautiously and asked, "What's going on? Have you checked how the person died?" The body was still on the bed and no one dared to touch it. Zhang Yi knew some medical skills and was more courageous, so she asked Li Zhang to help her go over and check the corpse. Hearing Laoshan's question, Zhang Yi suppressed her nausea, came to him, and lowered her voice and said, "He died very strangely. His internal organs were hollowed out, and almost only the skin and bones were left." When Laoshan heard this, his face instantly became extremely ugly. After they came to the sea, they had already encountered many mutated monsters. This kind of death is obviously not something ordinary people would do. He stepped forward and carefully touched the body with his gun. It was found that, as Zhang Yi said, the bodies had been hollowed out. It was as if something had penetrated into his body and eaten away his internal organs. "Everyone, get out of the way. Everyone else should leave this room immediately," Laoshan said to the others in the cabin. Immediately, the crew began chasing people away. Only 3 people, Li Zhang, were left. Laoshan said to them, "Don't tell anyone about this matter. Before finding out the truth, if you let others know, it will easily cause panic." Zhang Yi nodded. "We think so too. Now is a special moment, so it's better to handle it properly." Laoshan had the door closed and then ordered the crew to raise their guns and aim at the body. He pulled out a sharp dagger from his boot, came to the body, stretched out his hand to touch the sunken chest, and then stabbed it down with all his strength. No bodily fluid splashed out, and Laoshan's hand felt like pricking a shriveled duck. Laoshan continued to exert force, and the entire chest was opened effortless. It was empty inside, nothing. Continuing to cut open other parts, no abnormalities were found. There weren't even any wounds visible on his body, as if something void had swallowed up his internal organs and flesh and blood. Laoshan's expression became increasingly serious. He had never encountered this kind of situation during his decades as a sailor. At this time, the entire Yan Liu group had gathered outside the cabin. They were all talking. Some people even said, "I saw that corpse. It looked like a mummy. It was definitely not done by humans. Could it be a monster in the sea? Have we encountered too few monsters during this period? But it actually sneaked into our cabin and killed people, and no one noticed it. This, what should I do?" Laoshan also felt extremely troubled at this time. If the immediate problem cannot be solved, people may continue to die on the ship. The people in the Yan Liu group have a relatively higher level of knowledge, and it is difficult to make up excuses to deceive them. If the people are confused, it will be difficult to lead the team. At this moment, Zhang Yi's calm voice suddenly sounded outside. "Old Shan, how do you patrol?" Zhang Yi came in from the outside with 2 crew members. He casually threw a strange looking sea fish onto the floor. "If I hadn't discovered it, wouldn't I have let this monster escape?" Everyone's eyes turned to the hideous and ugly fish on the floor. Zhang Yi took a white handkerchief from the crew, wiped his palms, and said, "It was the murderer. I was almost attacked by it on the deck just now. Today's ocean is full of dangers, and everyone must be more vigilant. You can't just rely on me and my crew for everything." Liu Shan hurried out when he heard Zhang Yi's voice. Mr. Zhang. Zhang Yi glared at Liu Shan sharply. You guys are slacking off. Liu Shan swallowed his saliva and quickly apologized. I'm sorry, Mr. Zhang. It was my mistake. He looked at the strange fish on the floor, but he had some doubts in his heart, but he didn't say it out loud on the spot. Zhang Yi said, move the body out and strengthen patrols in the future. In addition, Li Zhangyu, you yourself have to bear the main responsibility for this problem. There are dozens of people in your Yanliu group, which is more than my crew. You can't just eat and drink all day long. You have to organize yourself and conduct patrols. When Li Zhangyu heard this, he couldn't help feeling guilty and said, what you said is that we were indeed too careless. Zhang Yi nodded. Well, that's it. Then you can arrange your own patrols. After Zhang Yi finished speaking, he left the cabin as if nothing had happened. Liu Shan asked people to carry away the body and the strange fish on the floor. The members of the Yanliu group in the cabin were relieved when they saw this. After arriving at the upper deck, Liu Shan followed Zhang Yi and asked softly behind him, Mr. Zhang, what should we do next? With his many years of experience at sea, he could naturally see clearly that the wounds on the corpse were definitely not caused by the fish Zhang Yi killed. The reason why Zhang Yi did that was simply to stabilize people's hearts. Zhang Yi glanced at the corpse and said, take him to the infirmary. A detailed dissection is needed to find out what caused it. Liu Shan immediately asked people to carry the body to the infirmary. Then Zhang Yi called Zhao Ke over and explained the whole story to her. It was also the first time for Zhao Ke to experience this strange situation. She quickly changed her clothes and went to the infirmary to examine the body. After seeing the body, she had a very strange expression on her face. There were no wounds on the outside of the corpse, and the inside was extremely smooth. It was as if the internal organs had disappeared out of thin air. Zhao Ke's words gave Liu Shan a chill. Could it be that the sea monster did it again? Even Zhang Yi frowned deeply. They had encountered the kraken in the ice fog area more than once, and every time it gave them a headache. Although he possesses great power, the kraken's abilities are all kinds of strange, making it difficult for him to guard against them. For example, this time, something strange appeared on the ship, but he didn't notice it at all. Zhao Ke picked up a sharp scalpel and said calmly, while cutting open the body, I need to conduct a careful inspection before I can draw a conclusion. But before that, I think the entire ship must be on heightened alert. Because no matter what weird things happen now, they are normal. Zhang Yi was convinced, and he immediately said to Liu Shan, from now on, all crew members are ordered to be on alert 24 hours a day and must not slack off. For the sake of safety, the patrol will be changed from the original group of 3 to a group of 4. In addition, people are also concentrated in the middle and lower cabins, and they are arranged to patrol in shifts. Also, any personal actions must be avoided. Even if you go to the toilet or take a shower, you must go together with more than 2 people. Chapter 891. Today is my birthday. Zhang Yi did not dare to be careless about the unexpected situation. The mermaid siren he met before almost confused his mind and caused him harm. Even a stranger with such powerful abilities like him would not be able to avoid any blind spots. Not to mention the vast majority of ordinary people on the ship. Liu Shan immediately summoned the crew, conveyed Zhang Yi's order, and called Li Zhangyu and Lu Dahei, asking them to cooperate with the work on the ship. Liu Shan spoke frankly to the 2 cabin crew members and told them the truth. Don't spread the news, lest it cause panic and more people will die. I tell you in advance, so that you have an idea. Do you understand? After Li Zhangyu and Lu Dahei listened, they felt a little scared. How dare they have any opinions? They are all afraid that they will be killed in their sleep for no apparent reason. Therefore, they all actively cooperated and quickly organized the adults in the cabin to conduct patrols 24 hours a day. In one day, all parties cooperated to inspect the entire ship from top to bottom. It can be said that no corner has been spared. Finally, Liu Shan discovered a clue through surveillance video. However, after seeing clearly what happened last night, instead of relaxing him and the crew members who were watching the video together, it actually made them more and more frightened. Soon, they called Zhang Yi over and told him that they had made a major discovery. Zhang Yi came to the control room and saw that every crew member looked much paler. These experienced sailors had clear fear in their eyes. Even Liu Shan's dark face turned white at this time. What happened? Zhang Yi asked with a frown. Liu Shan swallowed and pointed at the surveillance video. You will know at a glance. Zhang Yi came to the surveillance video. Considering the unusual behavior of Liu Shan and others, he took a few steps back and did not get too close to the monitor. A crew member clicked the play button. The time was 1:23 last night. In the dark night, the infrared camera clearly captured what happened in the aisle of the middle cabin. Beijing Gaiyu, wearing white clothes, walked slowly from the end of the corridor. It seemed that he had just finished using the toilet. But when she was halfway there, her whole neck suddenly tilted back, and her body began to twitch violently. It was as if something had forced her mouth open, causing her mouth to open to an unbelievable degree. After about 5 or 6 seconds, her body twisted and squirmed like a zombie, and then slowly returned to its original state. Under surveillance, her eyes slowly lost their brightness and became numb and cold. Then he walked to his room, as if nothing had happened, pushed the door open and entered. And the room she entered was the room where the person died today. The whole scene lasted only a few dozen seconds, but after watching it, a layer of white hair sweat appeared on Zhang Yi's back. This picture is too weird. From the beginning to the end, they didn't see clearly what attacked Beijing Gaiyu. But they also knew that Beijing Gaiyu at this time was no longer the Beijing Gaiyu before. It felt like being possessed by an evil spirit. Faced with tangible enemies, they know how to destroy them. But how to kill an invisible and insubstantial enemy? No wonder Liu Shan and the crew were a little unbalanced after watching it. But after Zhang Yi was shocked, he quickly calmed down. Although this scene is weird, Zhang Yi, as a stranger, has seen too many incredible abilities. He could conclude that this must be some kind of mutant creature causing trouble. It's also possible that Beijing Gaiyu himself mutated and possessed some kind of evil power. Have you told anyone else about this? Zhang Yi asked calmly. Liu Shan said, no one else knows about this except us. We don't dare to disturb this woman. We just wait for you to make up your mind. Zhang Yi rubbed his chin, and many thoughts came to his mind. The strange thing that invades the ship is unknown. Abilities and superpower levels are all unknown. If he accidentally disturbs the other party, Zhang Yi can naturally protect his own safety with his powerful ability. But there are so many helpless people on the ship, and I'm afraid many of them will be killed. After finally bringing the people back, Zhang Yi couldn't say how important he was to them, but he also had to try his best to avoid causing fearless casualties. So, what should we do to find a way to deal with it without alerting the strange existence? After thinking carefully for a moment, Zhang Yi quickly thought of a plan in his mind. Observed. Before knowing the truth, the best way is not to act rashly, and to collect enough information first. This is his home court after all, and even if something strange sneaks in, he shouldn't panic. Old Shan, give extra meals to everyone on the ship today. Gather them all into one cabin. Then use the monitoring equipment to observe everyone carefully for me. There are still more than 100 people on the ship, so it is not difficult to free up a warehouse as a temporary gathering place. Then, during this time, you arrange for someone to go over and do something. Zhang Yi leaned into Liu Shan's ear and said, in those rooms in Yanliu group, install monitoring equipment for me. Liu Shan nodded after hearing this. But there should be a reason for a dinner party, right? Otherwise, what if that thing becomes suspicious? Zhang Yi smiled lightly. Just say it's my birthday today. Liu Shan accepted the order and immediately ordered the chef Zi Changming to prepare more sumptuous meals. Then he notified people in each cabin to gather on the upper floor at noon to celebrate Zhang Yi's birthday. The people below didn't care whose birthday it was, but they were very happy when they heard that there was a big meal to be had. Many people even started looking for plastic bags and rags, planning to grab some food and take it home to eat later. In the cabin, where people had died, although the shadow of death was hanging over some people's minds, everyone was used to seeing life and death, so they were not scared out of their wits. When I heard that there was a big meal to be had, I quickly forgot about the dead person. Beijing Gaiyu lay quietly on the bed, her eyes dull, but except for this, everything else seemed to be the same as usual. The companion next to her kindly came over and patted her. Beijing Gayu turned her head and stared at her, making the woman startled. Sister Bei, let's go eat. Go early to grab a good seat. If you go late, the dishes will be covered by others. Oh. Beijing Gayu saw other people rushing over, so she got up from the bed, then followed the flow of people out of the cabin, and walked towards the upper cabin. Chapter 892 Parasite. The Yanliu group and the people in the bottom cabin were sitting around in a lively manner. The crew arranged for them to sit down in an orderly manner, so that they could observe easily. Everyone had brought all kinds of things with them, and they were just waiting to grab the food as soon as it was served, without thinking about anything else. After all, Lao Xian has said that this is a banquet prepared for Zhang Yi's birthday. It is extremely sumptuous and has enough food. Zhang Yi stood directly in front of the room, his eyes sweeping over everyone present. When Beijing Gayu walked into the room, Zhang Yi paused for a moment and then moved to the others. After a while, Zhu Yang and Su Nuanxi came with Tommy in their arms. Mr. Zhang, happy birthday. The two came over to congratulate Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi just smiled and nodded perfunctorily, and then continued to look at the other people in the cabin. When the two of them saw Zhang Yi's indifferent expression, they couldn't help but feel a little unhappy. Zhu Yang complained, "It's true of you. We have known each other for such a long time, and yet you didn't even tell me about something as big as your birthday." Zhang Yi frowned slightly. "Just think about it. It's not a big deal. You two should quickly find a place to sit." Zhu Yang and Su Nuanxi looked at each other, then nodded to each other. Zhu Yang suddenly smiled and said to Zhang Yi, "Since it is your birthday, we must prepare a gift for you. There's nothing special I can give you at sea, so why not let Tommy recognize you as a godfather?" As she spoke, she handed the baby in her arms forward and said in a hoarse and unconcealed eager voice, "The baby is very cute. Really, as long as you hold him in his arms, you will know how good he is." As soon as Tommy handed it over, Zhang Yi immediately smelled a foul smell. Needless to say, neither of these women were good at raising children, and they certainly didn't do a good job in hygiene. He quickly took a step back and said, "Forget it, I'm not interested in babies. You like it so much, so why not keep it for yourself? It just so happens that one of you will be the father and the other will be the mother." Seeing that the plan failed, Zhu Yang couldn't help but darken his face. We are not in that kind of relationship." Zhang Yi waved his hand and motioned for them to sit down first. "Let's order first." The two women pouted angrily, then found a place to sit down. Zhang Yi pretended to make a speech, but he also knew that everyone's attention was on the next meal, because there was no nonsense. He gave Lao Xian a look, and soon, Zi Changming and several crew members pushed the dining cart and brought steaming dishes of big fish and meat to the table. As soon as a dish was placed on the table, it was like poking a hornet's nest. There were more than a dozen pairs of chopsticks and some people even reached out to it. After a while, the whole roast chicken and elbows were torn into pieces by everyone, and then stuffed into their own red plastic bags. Zhang Yi and Lao Xian sat at the same table and did not eat. Instead, they took the opportunity to observe the people in the room. Sure enough, after looking at it like this, he discovered some problems. Not only Beijing Gayu, there were 3 other people in the crowd who behaved calmly while eating. These people on Yanliu Island have not been able to eat such big fish and meat on weekdays for nearly a year. If anyone can remain calm at this time, there is only one possibility: he is not a human at all. Zhang Yi silently remembered these people in his heart without making any announcement. He came to the control room midway. "There are crews here monitoring everyone in the restaurant." Zhang Yi asked them to find all the suspicious people. After careful confirmation, they basically matched the people he found. Zhang Yi did not take any action. While he was waiting for Zhao Ken's autopsy results, he asked Lao Xian and other crew members to prepare for a vigil at night. Time passed by and everyone on the boat had a full meal, so they all went to bed early today. In the middle of the night, in the cabins of several rock flow groups, 3 figures suddenly climbed out of bed, as if they had made an agreement. They came to their sleeping companion next to them and leaned down stiffly, with their heads on their heads. Then their mouths suddenly opened, so wide that nothing could be seen, and the mouth of the person on the bed also opened wide. After twitching for a while, There was no more movement. After doing all this, those few people returned to the boat, as if nothing had happened, covered themselves with quilts, and continued to rest. At midnight, Zhang Yi, Lao Xian and others were in the control room, and could see the scene clearly through the surveillance system. Infrared surveillance cameras capture details very clearly, but they never saw what it was. Is it really a ghost in the ocean? One of the crew members swallowed and said nervously. Zhang Yi glanced at him, and came up with an idea. Maybe it's something that can become invisible, or it could be some kind of transparent sea creature. After observing the strange creature's killing methods, Zhang Yi felt a lot more relieved. Because according to his observations, the destructive power of this weird thing is not particularly strong. And it is not a spirit that can ignore physical attacks. If they want to kill, they have to go through close contact. Lao Xian immediately proposed to catch all those guys and kill them. Zhang Yi said calmly, "Don't worry, everyone is asleep at this time. If there is a commotion, too many people may die. It seems like they don't eat that much. They should be full tonight. When we eat tomorrow, we will serve them in one pot." Zhang Yi patted Lao Xian on the shoulder, and went back to the room to rest. When she opened the door, she saw Zhao Ken sleeping quietly on the table. She was wearing a combat uniform, which was requested by Zhang Yi to prevent unknown strange things from harming her. Zhang Yi walked over with a smile, carried her to the bed, and helped her take off her shoes. Zhao Ken slowly opened her eyes, and saw Zhang Yi. She blinked her eyes and asked, "Have you figured out what is causing the trouble?" "A very weird marine mutated creature, probably parasitic." Zhao Ken nodded. "My autopsy results are also out." She took out some photos, and showed them to Zhang Yi. Observed through a microscope, the wound is surrounded by dense small tooth marks. Therefore, the flesh and blood lost from the corpse is not a supernatural event, but has been chewed clean. Zhang Yi nodded. "That makes sense." But then he frowned. There must be more than one or two of these creatures. There should be a large number of them in the sea area where we are. We have to find a way to completely solve this problem. Zhao Ken said with a smile. "Then we have to catch a few of them first, and then conduct research to find out." Zhang Yi nodded. "That's easy to say." While the two were talking, Zhang Yi's keen spatial intuition made him feel a strange fluctuation. Chapter 893 Good luck. Zhang Yi's intuition is very sensitive to the fluctuations of space. At this time, he noticed something strange appearing on the deck. The sound was like people walking on the deck. Without hesitation, he walked directly to the deck, and a small sound similar to footsteps sounded in his ears. Zhang Yi looked towards the deck, and an extremely terrifying scene appeared. A string of water stains appeared on the deck, about 10 to 20 centimeters long. Just like human footprints. How many weird things are there in this damn shabby place? Zhang Yi pulled out his gun, pointed it in the direction of Shushan and shot. There was a strange cry in the air, like the sound of feet in mud. A large pool of water suddenly exploded on the floor, and then quickly crawled towards the edge of the ship. Zhang Yi fired a few more shots with quick eyes and hands, and it seemed like something had been hit. He walked over cautiously, and knelt down to observe carefully. With the help of the night vision function, and scanning analysis capabilities of the combat uniform, Zhang Yi could vaguely see a long outline, like a long transparent sock. Is this thing the culprit that caused the abnormal deaths on the ship? Zhang Yi picked up the transparent sock-like creature, but it shrank quickly, as if most of its body was filled with water. After being hit, the body fluids were lost, and it quickly shrank to less than the size of a palm. This kind of thing is really hard to guard against. If I hadn't been prepared in advance, I might even kill the host, but I wouldn't be able to deal with it. Zhang Yi secretly sighed in his heart. Fortunately, he caught the main body in advance, otherwise he might have lost everything tomorrow. He quickly brought the strange creature back to the room, and asked Zhao Ken to check it out. Based on the conclusion and analysis given by Zhao Ken, he reformulated his action plan for tomorrow. On the next day, Zhang Yi ordered everyone to come to the upper restaurant again, because the custom in his hometown was to hold birthday banquets for 2 days in a row. The people below don't care about this. As long as they have food, they are happy. So people gathered at the restaurant again. Li Zhongyu and Lu Dahai were worried. They knew what happened on the ship, but no matter how carefully they patrolled yesterday, they found no signs of anything unusual. These people do not yet know that the greatest danger lies within their own group. When Zhang Yi saw that everyone was here, he quietly asked someone to lock the cabin door and then ordered Zi Changming to serve the food. As soon as the food was served, everyone behaved much better than yesterday, but their chopsticks were still flying. However, as soon as the food was put into his mouth, there was a loud sound of spitting rice in the restaurant. PFFT. This food is too salty. Kill the salt seller. Zhang Yi glanced at Zhu Yang and Sunu Angxi not far away. The two women were also complaining. Zhang Yi took out his gun expressionlessly and pointed it at everyone in the restaurant. Not only him, but the crew members who had been prepared for a long time also took out their submachine guns, loaded their bullets, and pointed them at everyone in the restaurant. Ah. What are you doing? This move shocked everyone. Zhang Yi said calmly, don't do anything, there is dirt mixed in among you. So I asked someone to add some ingredients to the food and continue eating. Whoever doesn't eat is the dirt. Zhang Yi's words made everyone's faces change. Is there something dirty among us? Li Zhangyu and Lu Dahe knew that the dirty things Zhang Yi mentioned did exist, and they spoke quickly to calm everyone's emotions. With a gun pointed at their head, although people were reluctant, they still had to lower their heads and take a big gulp of food. Suddenly, the person sitting opposite Beijing guy heard a grumpy sound. He looked up and saw an eyeball slipping onto the table and rolling in front of him. He was stunned all of a sudden. The huge impact made his body stiff and his throat was unable to make a sound. Beijing Gayu stiffly took the rice into her mouth with a spoon. One eye socket was empty and the other eyeball was shaky. What's wrong? Why don't eat? Her body became stiffer and stiffer, and suddenly a wisp of white smoke rose from her pupils. The man opposite her let out a heart-rending scream. Immediately, two crew members rushed over, took out something similar to a water gun from behind, and pointed it at Beijing Gayu and shot it. Beijing Gayu opened her mouth wide and let out a shrill wail. Soon, her body fell to the ground, shriveled up like a trisolar and being evaporated dry. The anomalous creatures are mollusks, similar to jellyfish, that can survive on human body fluids. Therefore, those killed by it will quickly wither away. If you just kill the host, it will be difficult to completely kill them. They must be killed by dehydration using highly concentrated organic solutions. After Beijing Gayu was dealt with, other similar situations quickly appeared in the restaurant. This parasite can control people's brains and wants to disguise itself, but its shriveled body is not convincing at all. After being surrounded, a woman wanted to ask her husband for help, but was kicked to the ground by her frightened husband. Soon, all 6 parasites in the crowd were completely killed. Zhang Yi looked at those shriveled corpses, but he didn't feel very relaxed in his heart. This parasite is very weak and can be easily killed once discovered, but they relied on their strange abilities to kill many people on the ship. If they continue sailing at sea and don't land ashore early, they don't know what kind of danger they will encounter in the mysterious sea. Okay, it's okay. Everyone can continue to eat. After Zhang Yi finished speaking to everyone, he turned and left the restaurant. Everyone was left looking at each other, and many people didn't know what happened from beginning to end. But it was horrifying to think that those who died had spent a lot of time with him, and that they might have almost died in their sleep one day. Zhang Yi arranged for Liu Xian to lead people to spray high concentration organic solutions around the hull every day. That's what mollusks hate most, and it's a way to prevent such creatures from climbing onto the boat again. Old Xian, how long until we find land? Zhang Yi called Liu Xian over and asked. Liu Xian hesitated. Mr. Zhang, to be honest, I'm not sure about this either. To a large extent, we have to pray for luck. Zhang Yi rubbed his forehead. Luck? If they are unlucky, they may even directly encounter the Colombian Ocean Fleet that is hunting them. If his luck goes against his will, and he encounters that Epsilon level stranger, even Zhang Yi is in danger of death. What if we don't consider luck and analyze it from the worst possible outcome? What will happen? Liu Xian thought for a while and said, there is no major problem with our course. There is enough fuel on the ship. In the worst case, we can reach the Starry Sea in the southern seas in another 3 months. P.S. Today the editor talked to me about the King of Gifts event and asked me to make an extra update to encourage everyone. HMM. I usually don't update too much, so I don't know what to do. So let's be realistic. After the event, I will update 1 chapters for number 20 and 10 chapters for now. And that's it. Please everyone. This time the rules are based on the amount and number of people, so you can get extra points just for free gifts. Chapter 894 Lord of the Ocean, Hunting. After hearing the word Starry Sea, Zhang Yi couldn't help but think of the Xianlong pirates. The Starry Sea is dotted with islands and the terrain is extremely complex. It has always been a place where pirates are rampant. Even caravans from some big countries dare not pass through here easily. After the end of the world, pirates became even more rampant, and the Xianlong pirates were the largest pirate group among them. He once eliminated the 4th division of the Xianlong pirates in Xianhai City. Later, the Jiangnan region also dispatched missiles to bomb the area. Therefore, the relationship between the Xianlong pirates and Huaxu country is not a good one. In the past, Zhang Yi would not have taken them seriously. But today is different from the past. He needs to hide his whereabouts to avoid being discovered by the Colombian Ocean Fleet. There is no guarantee that Colombia will not issue a bounty to allow major surrounding forces to encircle and suppress him. Therefore, you must be more careful in your next actions. 3 months. Just 3 months. It doesn't matter if you go back later. Safety first. Zhang Yi said so. First, we need to find a piece of land. Zhang Yi repeated this again. As long as he finds land, he can temporarily resettle the other people on the ship. And he himself was able to take Zhao Ke with him and use his ability to travel through space to return to Xianhai City as quickly as possible. Anyway, you only need to go all the way north. There will be no problem with the direction. The area around the sea where the Jimpfeng exploded. White ice fog filled the air, and a huge shadow slowly cut through the dense fog, heading towards the wreckage of the icebreaker. It was a small mountain-like figure, which would give people a strong sense of oppression even from a long distance away. But at this time, above the head of the top-level Delta whale, a man in a sea blue suit stood with his arms crossed. The strongest man in the Colombian Ocean Fleet, John Cardiles. He personally took on the task of chasing Zhang Yi. Now Huaxu Kingdom's East China Sea region has sent a large number of troops, delaying the main force of the Colombian Ocean Fleet Navy. As a result, the Colombian Ocean Fleet was unable to send too many troops to search for Zhang Yi's traces. And with the ability of Lord of the Ocean, he is undoubtedly the most suitable person to take on the task of hunting. Behind Cardiles, several naval officers came over. Lieutenant Colonel, according to our investigation, there are no human corpses on the ship. So we suspect that they may have been rescued by other ships. At present, the Navy has blocked all routes back to Huaxu Kingdom. Once any ship appears on the edge of Huaxu Kingdom's waters, we will get information as soon as possible. When Cardiles heard the news, he just smiled playfully. It sounds fun, but that's not what I want. I want to catch that person with my own hands. Huaxu Kingdom must have sent people to support them, so just destroy all the ships found. Cardiles stared into the depths of the ice mist. Could he be hiding in this area? Cardiles frowned, not sure. Because the ice fog sea is a place that even he doesn't want to touch. The signal is cut off here, and any ship sailing into it will lose its course. A ship that loses supplies may run out of power and food in a few months. Even strangers will starve to death without food. Forget it, I'm the noble John Cardiles and I will not take such risks. Cardiles said calmly. He finally went through many layers of selection before he got the opportunity to conduct human experiments in the Navy and became the only successful candidate among thousands of soldiers. Now he can get everything he needs in the Colombian Navy and there is no need to risk himself. Investigation is a matter for the intelligence department, so I will just wait quietly for their information. Cardiles chose to leave the foggy sea and quietly waited for the news. Colombia's troops have always been focused on performing their respective duties. As for personal heroism, that's just a story in Marvel Comics. Cardiles drove the giant whale and slowly left the sea. Not long after they left, on a ship deep in the misty sea, Ling Hufixu let out a long breath of turbid air. The last half hour was like a year for them. Originally, they came here to inquire about information about Zhang Yi, but they didn't expect to bump into Cardiles. Now is a sensitive time. Once Cardiles discovers their traces, death in battle is considered a good thing. Once captured, they don't know how the Rose team will be tortured. Gu Yufei. Can your friends continue to investigate? Ling Hufixu turned to look at her team members. At this time, Arya, Gu Yufei, a member of Team Rose, was squatting and communicating with the dolphins in the sea. The dolphins made plaintive whine sounds and kept shaking their bodies. Gu Yufei sighed softly. I understand. She raised her head and looked at Ling Hufixu and said helplessly, the oppression that Cardiles brought to them just now was too strong. The dolphins told me that Cartius has the power to control all things in the ocean. Once he gives an order, all the sea creatures within the range will fight for him. Moreover, the depths of the foggy sea are full of dangers, and even they dare not explore deeply. Ling Hufixu touched her smooth chin. Is that so? Then we can only choose to take a detour. But if we are like this, the Colombian Navy is not much better. Perhaps Chaos has a special ability to find the correct course in the fog. But the only thing we don't have to worry about is that they will die because they run out of supplies. After Ling Hufixu said that, he ordered someone to open the map of the surrounding sea area. Her green fingers traced across the map. To the north of the Misty Sea, the nearest areas are Maris and Rollant, but these two countries are just shaky wallflowers. Chaos can't go here. The best way is to take a detour and head to the chaotic Sea of Stars. Ling Hufixu frowned. Now we can only look in this direction. If it's not here, we have to consider heading west to Shiansu Sea. Following Ling Hufixu's order, Gu Yufei dismissed the dolphin team around her. A huge rainbow bubble appeared from the ship, and then quickly enveloped the entire ship. Just like this, in the thick fog, a huge cruiser mysteriously dived into the seabed, and then headed towards the Starry Sea. At this time, the Zhang Yi was also traveling hard in the foggy sea. After a series of sea monster incidents, the people on the ship were frightened, and many people became more or less neurotic. No one knows when a new crisis will come. But one morning, the Zhang Yi broke through the fog and finally saw the shadow of the land. Chapter 895 Island and Fruit Forest. Early that morning, the island appeared in front of the Zhang Yi, so clear that it could be clearly seen with the naked eye. When the crew saw it, they thought they were hallucinating at first. Because they had been sailing in the fog for so long, they could hardly judge their position accurately. Such a long voyage has caused them mental problems. However, not one person saw the island, but everyone confirmed that it was indeed an island. Lao Shan opened the telescope and looked at the island. Looking from a distance, I found that there were patches of white woods above, with thick trees rooted in the soil. It's land. There's nothing wrong with it being land. This is not an illusion, nor is it the back of a giant whale. Lao Shan's voice trembled with joy. The crew members also hugged each other excitedly. Lao Shan immediately informed Zhang Yi of the news. After hearing the news, Zhang Yi rushed to the deck with Zhao Ke. Not long after, people on the boat discovered the island one after another and excitedly ran out to check it out. Although Zhang Yi was a little excited, he still remained completely cautious. He turned on the high power lens of his combat uniform and carefully examined the island in the distance. Old Shan, a small island suddenly appeared in the ocean. Is this reasonable? Zhang Yi checked and communicated with Lao Shan. You still have to ask old sailors about things on the ocean. Lao Shan said, land will not suddenly appear in the deep sea. There are often large tracts of land nearby. Mr. Zhang, look at this. Lao Shan took out the instrument and opened an electronic map for Zhang Yi to see. We have been lost in the icy and foggy sea, so we cannot judge the direction of travel and the accurate distance. I said that in our worst case scenario, it will take us 3 months to sail out of this sea and go to the Sea of Stars. But now that we have encountered an island, it means that we are not far from the Starry Sea. If we go forward, we will soon be able to sail into the South China Sea. Lao Shan looked at Zhang Yi longingly. Mr. Zhang, should we go to the island and have a look? Zhang Yi was silent, but he had different plans in his heart. If this island is really located around the Starry Sea, if calculated based on the distance, if he took Zhao Ke and left independently, he could complete the round trip to Xianhe City in more than an hour. Space travel is achieved by utilizing the principle of separation between two-dimensional gates. but it is not a teleportation in the ordinary sense. Zhang Yi will pause when performing the technique twice. This comes from the human body's instinctive reaction and direction judgment. This is even more true when you have to bear the weight of one more person. Everyone around them turned their attention to Zhang Yi. They had been away from the land for so long that their feet had forgotten what it felt like to step on dirt. They wanted to pounce on the land and take a big mouthful of soil. Zhang Yi glanced at them and said calmly, "Okay, let's go ashore and have a look." After receiving Zhang Yi's permission, the entire boat suddenly burst into excited cheers, and many people hugged each other and cried. Zhang Yi, however, looked calm and ordered Liu Shan and others to prepare for battle in case any weird mutant creatures appeared on the island. In addition, he personally put on Zhao Ken's combat uniform, asked her to hold the pistol, and made sure to follow him and not leave for a second. Zhu Yang couldn't help but feel a little jealous when she saw Zhang Yi taking care of Zhao Ken meticulously. It has been nearly 4 months since I spent time at sea with Zhang Yi. Gradually, she began to have an indescribable feeling for Zhang Yi. Maybe it's a sense of dependence in a crisis, maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome. In short, any emotion can be transformed into love for a woman. But unfortunately, this is just her wishful thinking. For a person like Zhang Yi who only regards love as the spice of life, his reason does not allow him to accept any woman who will not bring him benefits. Zhu Yang is a counterexample. Not only will it not benefit Zhang Yi, but it will continue to cause him trouble. Everyone began to prepare to land on the island. Xiaoyao cannot get close to the edge of the island, so you need to drive a boat over. Zhang Yi asked Liu Shan to arrange to send the passengers on the boat to the island first. In this way, if there is any danger, they can explore the path first. Zhu Yang came to Zhang Yi and looked at him eagerly. "Mr. Zhang, it looks like there may be danger on the island. You must protect me." Zhang Yi crossed his arms and said, "Don't worry, I will try my best. No matter who is in trouble, Zhang Yi will help, if he can save him. After all, the people on the boat are the laborers he finally brought back." Zhu Yang said excitedly, "Okay, I'll squeeze into a boat with you." Zhang Yi looked at Liu Shan and reached out to greet him. "I will leave the best boat to Miss Zhu later." Liu Shan said hey and asked Zhu Yang to come aside. Zhu Yang glanced at Zhang Yi curiously. "The best boat was given to me, so what will you do?" "I'll do whatever I want." Zhang Yi took Zhao Ken to the side of the boat, stretched out his hand, and took out a yacht from another space. Zhang Yi jumped on the boat, hugged Zhao Ken, and put her on the boat. Then he sailed away. Seeing this, Zhu Yang was almost furious. SYNOPSIS returned to the cabin, wrapped Tommy tightly in a small quilt, and took him with her. After all, everyone on the ship has to leave, so it's not safe to leave the child here. Zhu Yang looked at Tommy who was sleeping soundly and felt relieved. If he makes trouble again at this time, it will be a big trouble for her. "Lisa, tell me, is there anyone on this island?" Zhu Yang suddenly asked. SYNOPSIS raised her head and glanced at her. "Well, I can't say for sure. Senior, do you have any ideas?" Zhu Yang brushed his hair and smiled slightly. "It's nothing. I just thought that if there was a family, maybe Tommy could be given to them to raise. After all, I'm not very good at raising children." SYNOPSIS' eyes immediately lit up. God knows how much they suffered because of this little ancestor. She nodded repeatedly. Yes, I think it's better to do this." Zhu Yang said. "Then let's take a closer look after we get ashore." Only 2 crew members were left on the ship to guard the ship, while the others happily sailed to the island shrouded in ice and fog. After a while, the first group of people landed on the island. From far away, Zhang Yi smelled a refreshing fragrance. He sniffed, feeling very strange. Why does it smell so good? This fragrance has no toxins, because the combat uniform's mask has a filter system, so it has a natural fragrance. Zhao Ken pointed to the dense woods on the island. "That looks like a fruit tree." Chapter 896 White Fruit and Aboriginals. Zhang Yi was greatly surprised that in this freezing and snowy season, there were still fruit trees that could bear fruit. But when he thought of the blood vine that once belonged to the snow worship sect, Zhang Yi felt relieved instantly. Plants are not immune to mutation. and as one of the most tenacious creatures, trees are indeed better able to adapt to changes in nature than animals. Even dead old trees have a chance to spring again. So it is not strange for plants to mutate and adapt to severe cold. When Zhang Yi and others landed, they saw that the group of people who landed on the island first had arrived in front of the orchard. The trees were unusually tall, with their tops connected together, and their huge needles intertwined with each other, blocking out the sky and the sun. The interior of the forest was very dark, but there are many white fruits growing on the branches. It looks a bit like a cantaloupe, but it is more slender than that, about 20 or 30 centimeters long. These fruits sway slightly in the wind, exuding a mouth-watering aroma. Some people can't help but want to go over and pick a fruit to eat. When Zhang Yi saw this scene, he planned to stop it, but then he thought about it and closed his mouth again. So, a man climbed up the tree, picked a fruit and ate it. The white fruit is broken open with force, and there is a creamy pulp inside, and the fragrant aroma is even more intense. Seeing everyone's timid look, the man smiled and said, "I study plants. I can tell that this fruit is not poisonous just by smelling it. You can eat it." As he spoke, he took a big bite in front of everyone. The sweet juice filled his mouth, and he smiled. "It's so sweet, it really quenches your thirst." Except for Zhang Yi and a few others, it was very difficult for the people on the ship to have enough to eat on weekdays. They had not tasted fruit for an unknown amount of time. So when they saw that there was nothing unusual about the fruit, they all ran over and scrambled to pick the fruit from the tree. There are also some who are cautious and do not dare to pick the fruits because they are worried that there may be something wrong with the fruits. Lao Shan came over, held a piece of fruit, and asked Zhang Yi, "Mr. Zhang, this fruit, don't eat." Zhang Yi just responded with 2 words. But after thinking about it, he still put the fruit into a different space. Lao Shan held back his tongue and said, "Yes." Su Nuanxi was also a little greedy. She said to Zhu Yunk next to her, "Senior sister, they have all eaten. Let's pick one and eat it too." Zhu Yunk has been observing Zhang Yi. Seeing Zhang Yi and Zhao Keller, both were indifferent, frowned slightly and said, "It's better not to eat. Safety first." Su Nuanxi swallowed, her expression a little regretful. But at this moment, Tommy in her arms woke up from the scent. As soon as he woke up, he started crying loudly. Su Nuanxi said quickly, "He probably smelled the milk and was greedy. Otherwise, get some for the child to eat." Zhu Yunk said instinctively, "Are you crazy? You actually let Tommy eat this unknown thing?" Halfway through her words, her voice slowly trailed off. "Something of unknown origin." Su Nuanxi blinked, "But they are all eating. Look, I don't see any problems." Zhu Yunk hesitated, but still did not dare to take the risk. Along the way, she had gained a lot of memory, and she was already frightened by various strange events on the sea. Zhang Yi held a gun in his right hand, and held Zhao Keller in his left hand, asking the crew to stand guard with guns around him. After seeing that some passengers ate the white fruit without any abnormality, he said, "Let's go to the island." As the passengers walked, they carried more white fruits on their bodies, and then moved forward slowly. Zhang Yi needs to judge whether there is any danger here. If possible, place everyone here temporarily. After all, there is still fruit to eat, so he won't starve to death for a while. The trees on the island are so big that when going deeper, you have to turn on the miner's lamp for lighting. But as he walked, Zhang Yi noticed something was wrong. Because he actually discovered the traces of human activities in the woods. The deep woods are muddy and wet, so human footprints can be clearly seen. There are people living here. Zhang Yi secretly became more vigilant. However, there are still people living in this place, which means that there is an environment suitable for human survival. He took these people and moved forward step by step. After passing through the dense woods, we discovered a village made of wooden houses in front of us. The fields and houses look like row upon row. There are no tall buildings, just wooden houses. They walked out of the woods and saw no one outside. But this is understandable. It's freezing outside, and no one would go out rashly if it's not necessary. Compared to Zhang Yi's caution, the other passengers on the ship were much more excited. They felt they had found a holy place suitable for survival. There are a large number of fruit trees here, which can provide them with sufficient food. and the human village shows that there is no problem in long-term survival here. Some people could no longer hold themselves back and ran to the village to ask if anyone was there. Is there anyone here? Hello? Is there anyone else here? Zhang Yi frowned slightly when he heard their shouts, but did not say anything to stop them. He just pulled Zhao Ke and others to stop at a distance. After a while, the door of a wooden house was opened cautiously. The person who opened the door was an old woman wearing black clothes. Her skin was dry and wrinkled, and her body was hunched over. She looked like she was in her 80s. Where are you all from? Surprisingly, the old woman spoke Chinese. However, in this sea area, there are indeed Chinese people living everywhere. The passengers were excited to see someone really there. Someone immediately came forward and said, "We came from afar and came here to rest for a while." Lao Shan walked next to Zhang Yi and said, "Mr. Zhang, he looks like an ordinary person. We should have arrived at a small island in the southern sea, and we are very close to entering the Sea of Stars." Zhang Yi nodded and said nothing more. The passengers over there were already chatting happily with the old lady. Perhaps it had been too long since they had seen other people, and they were all very excited. One after another, people from other houses cautiously opened the door and walked out. These people claim that they are all local residents. After heavy snowfall, they have survived to this day by relying on the fruits of the local sacred tree. But Zhang Yi always felt a little strange when he looked at them, because there are only women in this village, but not a single man. Moreover, the skin color of those women was strangely pale. "Everyone, you've come all the way here. Just rest here. I'll prepare dinner for you," the old woman said with a smile. Then she turned around and returned to the house. Women from other families also warmly entertained the passengers to go home for dinner. These passengers were greatly moved, and their hearts were warmed by the enthusiasm of the locals. Zhu Young looked down at the child in his arms and couldn't help but murmur to himself, "Tommy, it wouldn't be a bad thing for you to leave you to the people here to raise you." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 897 Insect, +1. The villagers on the island look happy and the villagers are very enthusiastic. But Zhang Yi always felt that something was not right. He has always been unafraid to speculate on people's hearts with the deepest malice. In the past, he might have been happy to encounter such a welcoming village. But it's been almost a year since the end of the world, and supplies are in short supply everywhere. However, the residents of this village entertained them so warmly, which always made Zhang Yi feel that something was wrong. But his time echo instinct did not detect any crisis. Moreover, the fruit in the orchard is indeed enough for many people to eat. Maybe they are just purely enthusiastic. Nowadays, Zhang Yi does not have much patience to continue wandering on the sea. He had to find a suitable place as soon as possible and place the people on the ship. So he did not rush to take any action, but said softly to Zhao Ke, Lao Shan and others, "Don't be careless. We encountered too many weird things at sea. Let's observe for a while before talking. Let them test it out for us." Zhang Yi looked at the passengers who entered the locals' houses and said, "Since landing on the island, Zhang Yi has not interfered with any of their actions. I want them to help test whether there is any danger on the island." However, among so many people, there were some who were cautious. Like Zhang Yi and others, they had never eaten the fruit and did not dare to enter the hut of a strange villager. Seeing this, several women came over and invited Zhang Yi and the others to dinner. Zhang Yi just said lightly, "Thank you, we have already eaten." The woman invited her again and again, but Zhang Yi was indifferent. A strange smile appeared on the woman's face, and then she went back regardless of them. While others were eating, Zhang Yi took Zhao Ke and others around the island casually. This island is very peculiar, and its area is not too large. It is probably only the size of a district in Xianhai City. The entire island is covered with that strange fruit tree, which is actually an extension of a tree. "Hey, what is this?" Zhao Ke suddenly shouted in surprise. Zhang Yi followed her gaze and suddenly found a clear pond not far away. This made Zhang Yi greatly surprised, and he became cautious. The temperature in this area has now reached about degrees below zero. Not to mention fresh water, the offshore sea water will freeze. He kept the safety on the gun in his hand and cautiously walked over to check. After getting closer, I smelled a rich sweetness, even sweet to the point of being cloying. The pool of more than 10 square meters was crystal clear and had no idea how deep it was, but it was all filled with syrup. Could it be that the fruit on the tree decayed after it fell? Zhang Yi said to himself. But inadvertently, he saw something in the pool, which made his brows tighten immediately. There was a human skeleton floating in the clear water. Zhang Yi's expression suddenly changed, and he quickly stood up. I knew there must be something weird on this island. I can't stay here anymore. Leave now. He took Zhao Ke's hand and walked back quickly. At the same time, he ordered Lao Shan to notify all passengers on the island and return to the ship immediately. Although he still doesn't know what is on the island, Zhang Yi's intuition has always been accurate. Seeing Zhang Yi's serious expression, Lao Shan and other crew members did not dare to be careless at all. They have been sailing at sea for many years and know that there are many strange things on the sea. They will not be as careless as those passengers. A group of people returned the same way and came to the village they passed before. Zhu Young had just handed Tommy over to a very kind looking woman, and now she felt as comfortable as having been freed from a heavy burden. Everyone get back on the boat immediately, we are leaving. Lao Shan shouted through a loudspeaker. Many people were still eating in villagers' houses at this time. It had been a long time since they had enjoyed authentic food, and they were reluctant to leave. When some cautious passengers heard this and saw Zhang Yi and others leaving in a hurry, they immediately realized that something bad had happened, so they hurriedly left. Zhu Young frowned slightly, not knowing what was going on, but she was not stupid, so she and Su Nuangxi hurriedly caught up with Zhang Yi. Mr. Zhang, what happened? Didn't we say that we should find a land to rest for a while before setting off? I think this place is quite good. Why not stay for a while? Zhang Yi said calmly. This place gives me a very bad feeling. He looked around. The huge fruit trees were dark and damp, and the white fruits were swaying above his head, which was very depressing. Zhao Ke couldn't help but hold Zhang Yi's hand tightly. After Zhang Yi said this, everyone around him felt that the atmosphere was a little strange. After Lao Shan shouted a few times, he took the gun and retreated with Zhang Yi. At this time, there were still some passengers in the cabin, greedy for the delicious food in the room and reluctant to leave. But as Zhang Yi and the others embarked on their return journey, they suddenly found that the surrounding environment had changed drastically. A strong wind blew across the island, passing through the dense trees, and made a terrifying sound similar to a woman's laughter. A passenger suddenly covered his neck, his face turned red, and he knelt on the ground in pain. Wow. His mouth bulged, he opened it, and a long white maggot spit out from it. The maggots were more than 10 centimeters thick and almost burst his mouth. The body was covered in viscous liquid. After crawling out of the passenger's mouth, it fell to the ground with a clack. The round body kept squirming on the ground, and then crawled towards the person. Zhao Ke covered her mouth fiercely. If she hadn't been a doctor and had a strong psychological endurance, she would have vomited it out on the spot. Others didn't go anywhere, and many people vomited on the spot. Some people were disgusted, and others, like passenger number 1, spit out a huge white maggot from their mouths. Zhang Yi protected Zhao Ke behind him and said coldly, I know you can't just eat anything outside. But he didn't wait until Zhang Yi finished speaking. It was like rain above the head, and those long white fruits began to fall down with a crackling sound. After falling to the ground, the shell of the fruit exploded, revealing the white slurry inside, as well as strips of huge maggots. Only then did everyone realize that no wonder these fruits could survive at such low temperatures. What kind of fruits were these? They were clearly insect eggs. And the big trees all over the island are clearly mutated creatures. Zhang Yi endured his nausea and opened the two realm not to prevent himself from being touched by the insect eggs. This thing is not very harmful, but it is extremely disgusting. Those passengers who were greedy for food and did not have time to run out had now become fertilizer for maggots, and large maggots began to crawl out of various holes in their bodies. Chapter 898 Approaching the Sea of Stars, +2. Zhang Yi showed his calm side at this time. After all, he is a person who has experienced countless fights, so he will not be frightened by some bugs. He protected Zalketa and said calmly, "Let's go back to the boat. There is a black ring at the front of those maggots. After they pounce on a person, the ring opens, revealing a mouthful of sharp teeth." Fortunately, Zhang Yi and others were well prepared. Before going to the island, Zhang Yi and Zalketa had combat uniforms, while Liu Xian and Zhu Yang both wore body armor. No matter how sharp the teeth of that insect are, they can't bite through materials that can block bullets. But the scene of so many huge white maggots crawling up from the ground along the trouser legs, opening their mouths to bite, directly broke the defenses of Zhu Yang and SYNOPSIS. The two women were yelling like crazy people. There were too many maggots. Zhang Yi, Liu Xian and others used guns to shoot while retreating, but they couldn't deal with too many maggots at all. This made it difficult for the passengers. They did not have body armor to wear when they went to the island, so they had to endure nausea and fight madly with maggots. Soon the ground turned into a large patch of white flowers, with maggots squirming everywhere. Zhang Yi frowned. He could completely handle this situation. But the problem is that, if the power of the void is used, it will attack the surrounding crew and passengers together. Come on. Zhang Yi couldn't help it. Fortunately, these maggots were just disgusting, but not so lethal. These ordinary passengers could survive if they ran fast enough. Zhang Yi took Zalketa and directly used space to shuttle back to the ship. Zhu Yang was so frightened that she screamed and asked Zhang Yi to come back and save her. But Zhang Yi was not in such a good mood. After he put Zalketa back on the boat, he flew high into the sky to overlook the island. Sure enough, as he thought, the entire island was now occupied by the huge tree-like mutant creature. Unfortunately, this place was not suitable for him to temporarily house the people on board. Zhang Yi sighed and didn't intend to take care of the others. He just waited quietly on the boat for them to run back. About half an hour later, Liu Xian and others came back one after another. After counting the number of people, it was found that more than 30 passengers were missing. There is no doubt that they have become fertilizer for maggots. Zhu Yang and SYNOPSIS were wearing bulletproof vests and were covered in white sticky insect liquid. Although their bodies were not harmed in any way, their eyes had lost their luster, and they felt like they had no hope of life. Presumably, after experiencing this devastation, they will be left with an indelible psychological shadow for the rest of their lives. It's not that scary. It's a half plant, half biological mutant. It has strong reproductive ability, but average attack power. Although Zhang Yi was severely nauseated once, he was not frightened by this kind of existence. At least the discovery of this piece of land confirms that our course is correct. It won't be long before we reach the Starry Sea and find an island truly suitable for human survival. Zhang Yi was too lazy to deal with the mutants on the island. Solving it is easy, just use a lot of explosives or napalm. However, the island is quite large, and destroying it would probably require all of Zhang Yi's inventory. There is absolutely no need for this. And if only the ground part is destroyed, it will definitely regenerate given its size and vitality. This is probably the advantage of plant-based mutants, which are extremely tenacious. At this moment, Zhu Yang suddenly screamed. What? Everyone looked at her, only to see her covering her face with her hands, crying bitterly, my child, Tommy is still on the island, woo woo woo. Zhu Yang had previously handed Tommy over to a woman on the island. There is no doubt at this time that the woman has been controlled by the mutated creatures on the island. Therefore, what Zhu Yang did was equivalent to sending Tommy into the hands of death. She burst into tears streaming down her face. Zhang Yi was indifferent, but said to Zalketa next to him, would you say she is more happy or sad? Zalketa's face was filled with a narrow smile. Seeing how much she cried, I think she should be a little more happy. You mean crying with joy? Zhang Yi blinked. If not, Zalketa tilted her head and asked. Zhu Yang had long lost her patience with the baby, and she had been trying to find a way to get rid of this trouble. It's just that she doesn't want to be criticized or laughed at by others. Therefore, she always needs to find a suitable opportunity If not, how could she hand the baby over to a stranger without any investigation? Zhang Yi walked up to Zhu Yunk, looked at her crying, and comforted her. Don't be too sad. I know you didn't mean it. Well, if you are really too sad, I will go and help you now. Can you please save the child? Zhu Yunk's voice stopped with a gap. She froze. This, woo. That's too dangerous. I can't let you take the risk. Zhang Yi smiled and waved his hand. It's not dangerous. It's not dangerous. That thing is just a weirdo to me. Just wait. I'll be right back. No. Really, no need. Zhu Yunk stopped in a panic. Her eyes dodged, not daring to look into Zhang Yi's eyes. It was hard for her to make up her mind to do such a thing. If Zhang Yi rescues the child, how should she face the child and herself? It's better to cry hard and win sympathy while getting out of trouble quickly. Escape is shameful, but useful. Zhang Yi stood up and stared at her indifferently. Oh, that's it. He didn't say much, but it seemed like he had said everything. Zhu Yunk was so ashamed that she never dared to face Zhang Yi's eyes again. When she thought about how she once stood on the moral high ground and accused Zhang Yi, she was speechless. Now she understands that when people have no choice but to think about themselves first. Zhang Yi's indifferent magnanimity, in contrast, seemed hypocritical. Zhang Yi didn't really want to help her find someone. It has been so long. Even if it is found, there will probably only be a pile of bones left. Zhang Yi turned around and left. He called Lao Shan and Zhao Ke to study their current location together point and confirm the next course. Now that we have seen the island, it means that our current location is from the Sea of Stars to the Sea of Meris. It should be closer to the Starry Sea. Heading all the way north, we can confirm our current position in up to 3 days. Lao Shan put forward his opinion, based on his many years of sailing experience. Remember to give me free gifts. We will soon catch up to the #1 spot. Chapter 899. Do you really want to be so cruel? Zhang Yi looked at the navigation chart, holding his chin with one hand, thinking about deeper issues in his mind. When they sailed into the ice and fog sea, it was because it could effectively block various electronic signals, preventing the Colombian Navy from searching for them. Now, they are about to leave the Sea of Ice and Mist and enter the Sea of Stars. Although this is not the main patrol area of the Colombian Navy, there are still many South China Sea forces present. For example, there are many small countries and pirates. There is also a possibility that the Colombian Navy had anticipated their actions. At this time, there may be ships of the Colombian Navy in the Starry Sea. Zhang Yi knocked on the table. Sail carefully. We need to find a suitable hiding place as soon as possible. Lao Shan nodded. In the next few days, Zhao traveled north along the continental shelf. Sure enough, as Zhang Yi expected, he slowly sailed out of the mysterious sea shrouded in ice fog. 3 days later, as we walked along the bay, the surrounding fog slowly dissipated. The field of vision in front of us has become wider, and the endless sea of ice has always been scary in the past. However, at this time, every passenger on the ship wanted to cheer loudly. They finally got rid of that damn icy fog sea full of strange dangers. But as soon as he left the sea, Zhang Yi made a decision. He took out another ship from another space. An old fishing boat, covered with barnacle shells and rust stains, looked like it had been in service for an unknown amount of time. This kind of fishing boat can often be seen in small countries in the southeastern waters. The boat was recovered by Zhang Yi from the pirates. He just considered that something might happen at sea later, and he could use this as a way to hide. Now, although they have circled the ocean in a large circle, they have avoided the area patrolled by the Colombian Navy. But if you sail with caution, there is no guarantee of what you will encounter next. Therefore, this kind of fishing boat, which is common in the southern seas, is the best cover. Zhang Yi asked everyone to jump on the fishing boat, and then put the Zhao into his own alien space. Everyone on the boat was dumbfounded when they saw this method. Even though this is not the first time Zhang Yi has done this, every time they see it, they still sigh that human beings have begun to move toward the existence of higher dimensional creatures through mutation. The fishing boats are a bit crowded, so everyone's living environment is inevitably a little harder. But Zhang Yi knew that these were only temporary. He will find land as quickly as possible and hide everyone there. At that time, he could give full play to his space alien skills and bring a few important people back with him. For example, Zalker and Leo Zhu's niece Zhu Young, as well as several of his capable crew members. As for the others, you can just throw them to an island first, give them some food and let them stay there first. After Zhang Yi is confirmed to return to the Jiangnan region, Colombia will naturally not implement a sea blockade. At that time, any ship could be sent over to take people back. Zhang Yi had already made detailed plans in his mind. On the dilapidated fishing boat, the crew put on camouflaged cold weather clothing outside of their body armor, and then made it a little dirty to match the characteristics of pirates. As long as they continue to sail to the northern waters, they will encounter land in a few days. After traveling for 2 days, the fishing boat encountered pirates again at sea. But this time, instead of feeling angry, Zhang Yi and the crew members had happy smiles on their faces. Encountering pirates means you are close to land. But ordinary passengers on the ship were nervous about it. "Mr. Zhang, what should we do with them?" As usual, Leo Xian reported to Zhang Yi before taking action. As a subordinate, he is very qualified. Maybe he is not outstanding in terms of ability, but he can easily impress the leader by obeying the rules. You can be mediocre, but you can never be self-righteous. Zhang Yi thought for a while and said, "Don't use too much firepower, just scare them away. Act like an ordinary pirate gang. If we act too strong, it will easily attract others' attention." Leo Xian heard the sound and left. The crew on the ship armed themselves with guns and rocket launchers and began to fight back against the encircling pirate ship. But what is surprising is that the strength of that group of pirates is pitifully weak, and there are even only 1 or 2 old rifles on one ship. Even the boats were in tatters. After a counterattack by Leo Xian and others, 5 or 6 small boats were sunk, and the other boats were so frightened that they ran away. Zhang Yi immediately said, "Follow me. Follow them and you'll find land." The fishing boat followed closely behind the pirates, and after less than an hour, they finally found land. It was a fairly small island, and there were thousands of ships parked outside the ice circle around the sea. Large and small, the big ones are hundreds of meters long, and the small ones are only 5 or 6 meters long. However, most of the ships are in a damaged state. In this pirate-infested area, killings and battles occur every day, and dead bodies and shipwrecks are extremely common. Zhang Yi turned on the telescope mode of the combat uniform and observed the situation of the island. He found many makeshift houses on the beach and saw white bones. On the coast, human bones are piled up like hills. In the cold season, there shouldn't be so many skeletons, but those skeletons are as clean as specimens soaked in formalin. Zhang Yi squinted his eyes and said calmly, "As before, all the indigenous people on this island are bandits. It is already a nest of pirates who eat people without blinking an eye." Zhang Yi immediately summoned everyone on the boat. "Tell them that they will land on this island next. This island is very big. Everyone must take up arms and fight. For our safety, we must kill everyone on the island. So don't be soft when you take action. Do you understand?" When the passengers heard that they needed to use their guns to kill people, some had magnanimous expressions, some could not bear it, and some were slightly frightened. But after all, they have experienced many hells of life and death along the way, so they are not merciful. The island is full of murderous pirates. Although they are not qualified to criticize pirates, everyone is trying to survive, and they have no psychological burden if they kill those people. However, at this moment, SYNOPSIS stood up. She looked at Zhang Yi with a puzzled look on her face. "You want us to massacre people on an island? Are you sure? Do you really want to do such a cruel thing?" Zhang Yi gave her a cold look. He has been unhappy with this holy mother for a long time. "Oh. Cruel, haha. Then tell me carefully, why am I cruel?" Zhang Yi crossed his arms and looked at her with a smile, but there was a hint of coldness like a blade in his eyes. Chapter 900 Go away, go away. The people on the boat had already noticed that something was wrong, but some people's stupidity is hard to change. For example, SYNOPSIS has always felt that she and Zhang Yi have equal status. Zhu Young asked her to live in the upper cabin because he needed her to help take care of the children. Zhang Yi wanted to watch a show, but he had never seen her in the same way. This made her feel that she was qualified and obligated to point out Zhang Yi's mistakes. Su Nuangxi has no correct understanding of her identity. She looked at Zhang Yi and said eloquently, "They are local residents. If it wasn't because they couldn't survive, how could they become pirates? Now that the end of the world is approaching, the number of humans is getting smaller and smaller. We should no longer carry out massacres, but should leave a fire for human civilization." Zhang Yi nodded and then looked at ZHU Young behind her with a smile. "Miss ZHU, what do you think?" ZHU Young's little face suddenly turned pale. At this time, she was completely different from when she first went to sea. She has experienced too many things at sea, and now she feels a sense of fear for Zhang Yi from the bottom of her heart. "It's none of my business, don't ask me." She glanced to the side, clearly trying to stay out of the situation. Su Nuangxi looked at her with some hatred. ZHU Young also ignored her. Now that she no longer needs to take care of the child, Su Nuangxi doesn't have much value to her. Zhang Yi nodded, then looked at Su Nuangxi with a smile and said, "I think what you said makes sense. It's just that I'm not sure whether those people have good intentions towards us. Let's do this, Miss Su. Could you please be a representative and communicate with them? Then ensure that we can land safely." When Su Nuangxi heard this, she looked a little uncomfortable. She snorted softly, raised her neck and said, "I'm not stupid. If you let me go over like this, people would think I was going over to declare war. What if I get killed?" Zhang Yi smiled and said, "You can show your sincerity to them. Let's do this. I will give you some food and then send someone to send you over to negotiate with them. Is that okay?" Su Nuangxi's face was full of hesitation. She was not that courageous. Zhang Yi immediately changed into a sarcastic tone. "What? I thought Miss Su spoke so righteously. She must be a brave and kind person. In the end, haha, it's just words. A giant of words, a dwarf of actions." Zhang Yi laughed out loud. At this time, nearly 100 people on the ship were here. Zhang Yi's naked ridicule immediately made Su Nuangxi lose face. "Who said I can only use my mouth? I'll just go. I believe that, as long as we exchange love for love, there will be no misunderstanding between each other. Even pirates have humanity." Zhang Yi nodded. "Ah, yes, yes." He immediately took out a few bags of supplies for Su Nuangxi and then arranged for the crew to take her ashore. It wasn't until she saw Zhang Yi taking out the boat that Su Nuangxi realized that Zhang Yi was not joking. However, now that everyone was staring at her, she was already in a desperate situation, so she had no choice but to bite the bullet and get on the boat. Zhang Yi asked people to park the fishing boat a few kilometers away from the island. At this time, their arrival has attracted the attention of the pirates on the island. After all, they had just given a severe lesson to the pirates on the island. These pirates thought Zhang Yi and the others were here for revenge, so they were extremely vigilant. Zhang Yi lay on the railing, turned on the telephoto mode, and watched Su Nuangxi take a boat to approach the island. He narrowed his eyes, as if enjoying a pleasant show. After a while, two crew members escorted Su Nuangxi ashore. They dropped 2 bags of supplies on the shore. As soon as Su Nuangxi's front feet landed, the 2 crew members immediately set off to return. Su Nuangxi held 2 bags of supplies. Her face suddenly changed again and again. "Don't leave, don't leave. Don't leave me alone." She was already getting scared. However, it was too late. After the crew left, the pirates on the island discovered that a girl on the ship was left alone on the beach with a pile of supplies beside her, and they immediately rushed over screaming. Su Nuangxi turned around and saw hundreds of dirty natives rushing toward them with red eyes. Their legs weakened, and they collapsed on the ground. I'm here to negotiate peace with you. Look, this is the food I brought. Don't get me wrong." She was still trying to explain something, but in this place, few people could understand what she said. She was directly pulled to the ground. The supplies were torn apart first, causing looting. Those who didn't grab the supplies turned their attention to her. Su Nuangxi is not pretty, but she comes from a powerful family, so she has always taken good care of herself. That fair and delicate skin is something that those fishermen women on the island who blow the sea breeze all day long don't have. The pirates looked at her, their eyes gradually becoming hotter. Zhang Yi noticed something was wrong and shouted desperately, "What are you doing? Don't come over. Don't come over. I'm here to talk about peace. I'm here to talk about peace. Go away. You go away." "What?" Her voice was gradually drowned by the broken sound. The sharp screams and cries only sounded for a brief moment and were quickly cut off by something. Zhang Yi watched for a while, then felt no interest, yawned and went back to the house to rest. "We'll go to the island after we're done here." Lao Shan quickly nodded in agreement. Because the ship was too far from the shore, passengers without tools could not see what was happening on it and could only make vague guesses. Zhu felt a little uneasy in his heart. She walked over and said to Lao Shan, "Mr. Shan, please lend me a pair of binoculars." Lao Shan was watching with great interest, and upon hearing this, he took a deep look at Zhu. "Ms. Zhu, I suggest you stop reading. She is also your best friend after all. I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it." The more he said this, the more curious Zhu became. "No, I want to see." She took a deep breath and said firmly. Lao Shan shrugged and lent Zhu the pair of high-power binoculars in his hand. Zhu was fully prepared mentally and picked up the telescope to look at the island. Her pupils gradually dilated and her body trembled slightly. I watched this for 10 minutes. But suddenly, she screamed and threw the telescope in her hand to the ground. Then he held his stomach and vomited desperately on the deck. Lao Shan curled his lips when he saw this. "For you, this scale is indeed a bit too big, but for me, it's just right." Zhu didn't say anything because she had vomited out all her lunch. The scene she just saw was more disgusting than anything she had seen since going to sea. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.